Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. I was absent last week, and despite the fact that catastrophe happened for my Formula One team this past weekend, I'm not grieving that, but I'm here because, as this show always does, not rain, nor sleet, nor snow, nor tornadoes, or hurricanes, or in this case, weird timing schedules from our personal lives because society is a mess, will ever stop us from recording another new live edition, a Chaos After Dark edition of your favorite NFL podcast for the past 125 episodes. That's a milestone. It is the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. Myself, the ultimate orator on this program. Probably not. The Iceman Jerk here to intro us once again. And joining me is another third of our troublesome triumvirate here, the Games Master, Justin. Justin, how are we doing?
Living the dream, Jarek. How you doing? How was your week off?
I'm just. It's funny because it's only the second or third time I missed an episode in the history.
It's a rare thing.
It's a rare thing indeed. No, it was fun. I worked last Thursday night when you guys went live. It's a show business, as they say, but it was good. It was fun. It's amazing when technology fails you at your job. And then it just reminds me of all the Xfinity issues that we had early in the show's life. And I'm just like, this stuff tends to follow me. So it's always good fun. It's always good fun. But I was able to, the very next day, I caught the show. And as the people could see, if you watched last week, which why wouldn't you have watched last week? We did keep one thing at minimum. I mean, the Podfather has also been retained, ladies and gentlemen. He just got later in the episode. He did not get fired for any performance-based reviews from last week's episode. No. The Podfather is going to be on a little bit later in the program to join us. We're not sure which segment he'll join us in, but he will join us. Don't you worry. At minimum for the pick challenge, he has to be here for at least that.
Yes.
But we have kept the green for it because I saw it last week. I'm like, you know what? It looks pretty good. So the green will be retained going forward as a mini rebranding of the show as another accomplishment. The show, we only rebrand ourselves every once in a while, so this is a new one for the people. It's going to take time to get used to, but I'm sure the ratings are going to be soaring when they see that it's now green and white. In time for the holidays, too. We just match, ladies and gentlemen. That's what this show does. We keep up with the times, despite the fact that we have a rant segment that sometimes references stuff in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, or the fact that I myself orate as if this is a 1980s show intro. But nevertheless, let's get the show on the road. We have plenty to talk about today, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, fun, football, and chaos is the tagline of this program and the way we go. The football is very plentiful this week. And leg day, kids, if you watch football and you by chance work out or want to be a football player, please take care of your legs because a lot of NFL players dealt with leg injuries this past week. And I make a little bit light of it because that's what we do on the show, but it's actually really legitimately unfortunate. A lot of the injuries that occurred this past week, just a dang shame. Although one person got injured, which, 50-50 on if the fans actually feel better. Now, we're going to talk about those injuries and that individual in particular here a little bit later down the line. And Justin, were we soothsayers with the episode we did? Now, granted, once again, it was a terrible article and list that we ended up reviewing from CBS Sports. But was that the kickstart that forced all these NFL trades to happen? Because 3 or 4 have happened ever since we did that episode. And even more big names even could be rumored to get going here in the next week and a half or so. Because I believe November 5th is the trade deadline if memory serves. So it's getting really interesting in the football landscape here, bud.
Yeah, that's the least of it. I mean, it's been trade central here over the last couple of weeks.
Yes, and we can't wait to do that. Of course, we'll be keeping up with the trades in this episode, and of course, we're going to be keeping up with them for the next couple of weeks because definitely no chance that this is going to be the last of deals, and very excited on what deals could be on the horizon. We'll definitely have to revisit our before or after the trade deadline in terms of list of guys who were on the market or will be, and ask what will happen or what did happen, depending on when we do the show. Tenses, ladies and gentlemen, tenses are important. And speaking of tenses, he could be playing right now. This person could have been playing in the past. Any and all names, ladies and gentlemen, are available because our Games Master is here to present us with another outstanding edition of arguably the most popular segment in SAOC history. Name that player. Another edition, name that player. Justin, what do we got?
All right. This player was a 4-time Pro Bowler and won 1 Super Bowl. He was drafted in the second round out of Washington and played for 2 different NFL teams.
Okay. 4-time Pro Bowler. Washington. I keep sticking with Washington. Okay. Has he made 4 Pro Bowls yet? He's been in the league long enough to have made 4 Pro Bowls. Did he is the question. He won a Super Bowl. Did he go to Washington? Was he drafted in the second round? We'll find out because I have an immediate first guess.
All right.
The chaotic energy just does this. That's why chaos is in the name, ladies and gentlemen, because you have me, who every once in a while I dip into the realm of undiagnosed ADHD. I probably have to, if I'm being honest. Anyways, my first guess has a Super Bowl, right? So this is where I'm confident in the criteria. Definitely has a Super Bowl. He's been in the league long enough to where I believe he does have 4 Pro Bowls under his belt. Injuries are the only thing that make me slightly question it, but I'm relatively confident in thinking that he has 4. Because he's still playing. My guess is that he's still playing. Although, actually, no, wait. He hasn't played for 2 teams yet.
Who was it?
And then the next guy that came to mind just now did not go to Washington and has played for more than 2 teams. I'm pretty sure he's made it to 4 Pro Bowls. Damn it. This is tragic. The first name that honestly popped in my brain was Cooper Kupp. But I think he was drafted in the 3rd round, and he's still on his first team. Now, could we go to another one? Maybe, but he's not yet, so we can't count that. 2 teams. 4 Pro Bowls, 2 teams. 4 Pro Bowls, 2 teams. Trying to think of like recent. My mind always goes to the most recent guys. So recent Super Bowl winners, 4-time Pro Bowler, won a Super Bowl, 2 teams. No, he had to have made more than 4 Pro Bowls.
I don't know.
Maybe he
I'm
did.
not sure what you're talking about.
My first guess, because Super Bowl, yes, definitely played for. I don't think he played for a 3rd team, so I'll say at least 2. They're just the 2 that are in my brain. It'll probably end up being more than when I say his name. Aqib Talib.
Ooh, interesting. It is not Aqib Talib, but that is a good shout. I like that. I like that name. That's a name that might come up in future name that players.
I'm gonna just check for myself because it's like Broncos and Bucks are who he played for, or that I remember. I don't know if there was a 3rd team in there off the top of my head. And he played for 5, so I'll shut up.
Yeah, Aqib Talib was on a few towards the end of his career.
Dang, I forget about some of
a journeyman.
Yeah, I forget about some of the other runs, but he was a 5-time Pro Bowler, so still successful. I was in the ballpark relatively.
Yeah, definitely in the ballpark. So we'll go on to the next hint. This person is a Ring of Honor member for the team that drafted him, finishing with a total of 13,154 total yards and 89 total touchdowns for his career.
Okay. So with that, this is a back or a receiver, so I can eliminate the defense.
I didn't say it was a receiver. I said total yards.
Well, no, but that's why I said back or receiver.
Oh, you said back or receiver.
Yes, to be fair.
I didn't realize. I thought you said we're back to receiver.
Back. So total yards. So that leans towards rushing, although
Could
it would
be a tight end.
Receiver, or tight end, yes. It's going to be a tight end that has a reception or has a rushing touchdown. That's going to be the best part. Okay. 2 teams, 4 Pro Bowls, Super Bowl, 2nd round, Washington. The Washington thing is going to trip me up because I just suck at remembering where guys went to school. So I'm going to try to hit on every other aspect if I can.
He was a Washington Husky.
He was drafted in the 2nd round. No, won a Super Bowl, but I don't think he made 4 Pro Bowls. Also, the total touchdown part. That's a receiver. 2 teams. Wait, no, he played for more than 2. Wait. Did he go to Washington? No, he didn't go to Washington. The Rolodex in my brain gives me a player, and so then I need to start like sifting, like, okay, what do they? The second I find
Don't leave
something
us
that
in the dark. Tell us what player you're thinking of.
so Marshawn Lynch came to mind, but he went to Cal, so I can immediately take that out.
Mm-hmm.
He played for just the Bills and the Seahawks. Oh no, he played for the Raiders for like a season and a half too. So that's 3 teams.
It's true.
Who's the name I was thinking before? Oh, R.I.P. Demaryius Thomas was the first name I thought of. Like after the second hint, but I think it's tough because the Pro Bowl number skews me with him. But
I think he also played for more than 2 teams. He played for the Broncos. He was on the Patriots. He was on the Jets.
did he make? Well, my thing is because technically a guy could be on a team, but he only made the practice squad, but he never played in the regular
No,
season.
I think he played in the regular season for all 3 of those teams.
Really? Oh wow.
Yeah.
His Pats run, not to memory at all. That's one of those you just don't.
Well, after Brady retired, his career kind of went down the tubes.
Sure.
He had a couple of decent games, but he was never really the same.
Yeah, which is unfortunate. He was a good player.
Yeah.
Okay, 4-time Pro Bowler. I almost wanted to just say a hint here. I think just me here is this is one of the ones where you start to get me because this is not my strong suit. It's a successful player with that kind of yardage. I'm gonna kick myself when I inevitably get this wrong. I'm gonna go with. I should just troll and say Braylon Edwards for this guess just to get me to hint 3, but no. he fits none of the criteria. God, I know this is painful to some people. If the Podfather is watching this, he's probably trying to text a guess right now.
I was going to say, I'm sure we would have gotten a text message by now.
100%.
Unless he already knows who it is.
He
wouldn't want to spoil it.
He probably does. Give me... This is tough.
You stumped, jerk.
Yeah, no, honestly, I'm trying to make a respectable guess to get me to hint 3. Because like that's my thing. If I'm going to throw out a guess, I want it to at least be in the realm of possibility, right? Like I could be funny and I could just say, I don't know, Stedman Bailey, but he doesn't fit any of that criteria. So
no, he does not.
Nowhere near. Although shout out to Stedman Bailey. He was. I thought he would have been decent at the start of his career. Ring of Honor. So this guy's retired. So I need to roll back the Rolodex further. Just to get me to the third and final hint, I don't think this guy went to Washington, and I'm pretty sure he made more than 4 Pro Bowls, but he does have a Super Bowl on his resume. And did he play for more than one team, or did he retire with this? It doesn't matter. Just get me to my next to the last hint. Reggie Wayne, even though I know it's wrong.
Reggie Wayne is not correct.
Yeah.
All right, so let's give you some interesting facts about
this. Did Reggie play for another team, or was it all Colts?
Reggie Wayne, I think he did. Let's see.
He's one of those guys where it's like I kind of, iffy on some of that stuff.
Reggie Wayne played for the Indianapolis Colts. And he was an off-season practice squad member of the New England Patriots.
That'll do it. That's why.
Yes. But no. So this player, born and raised in Seattle, Washington, was actually a famous 2-sport athlete in his town.
Mm-hmm.
Drafted by the San Diego Padres in the 1993 MLB draft. Instead, he opted to go to the Cincinnati Bengals, where he had a standout career as a running back, ultimately ending his career 20th all-time, currently today, in rushing yards. He then moved on to the Patriots, where he won a Super Bowl.
Oh wait, what's his name? No, now I know who you're saying because here's my thing. When I was younger, I loved, and they don't make it like this anymore. Hey, the Podfather's here. When I was younger, and I think we could all agree with this, the championship winning DVDs of like teams championship winning seasons from like the 90s, like the ones of all the teams in the 90s to like the early to mid 2000s and some in the 2010s, I loved going back to watch those. And the Patriots, I definitely saw at least 1 or 2 of them. I know the player you're talking about. His name is escaping me right now, but I know who you're talking about.
Rick, without saying it, do you know who it is?
Corey Dillon.
Yes, that
Oh,
was him.
that's with saying it.
Oh,
No, thanks. I mean,
Yeah.
we still got it. Could have given me like an initial. I could have worked off that.
It was Corey Dillon.
well, I jumped in when you said drafted by the San Diego Padres in the '93 draft, and I thought Matt Clement. I was like, wait, that's not him. This is the wrong show for that. I'm playing Immaculate Grid all over again. Mark Hendrickson. No, not him either. So,
But the Podfather's here, ladies and gentlemen, and we have solved at the very last second the name that player.
Player.
Corey Dillon, nice one.
What am I doing in still in your? Oh, I think I'm still logged in as you. That's the problem here.
The second that you do it once, it's going to stay like that for at least a couple of weeks. So I get used
Well,
to
that sucks.
it. So Rick is I is Rick, and Corey Dillon was the answer to this week's Name That Player, ladies and gentlemen. So fantastic one by Justin. Took me all the way to the end right there with the Podfather coming in with the last save. That was a good one. Did you see either of my first two guesses, Rick? Or were you?
No, I hopped in at the very end. I had made a chicken Caesar salad, so I was kind of a little busy. But
Nice.
I didn't see what were your first two guesses out of curiosity?
So my first one with the information of 4 Pro Bowls, Super Bowl, went to Washington, and then only 2 teams. My first guess was Pete Lee, because I forgot he played for 5 teams. I also don't think he went to Washington, and he made 5 Pro Bowls. So I was like relatively close.
Yeah.
My second guess with total yardage of the player and touchdowns, no name came to me, so I just went with a guy who I think was respectably close in like the stats, but wouldn't have fit the other descriptions. Was Reggie Wayne, who turns out did play for a second team, so I was like halfway there. And where did he go?
Close too, by the way. He had 14,345 yards and 82 touchdowns.
Justin, when did you mention this was a running back? Was it the third?
He never. Well, yeah, it was the third one he mentioned.
So I wouldn't have gotten the first guess. My funny pick would have been Michael Penix as my first guess. Who's at Washington?
Well, but he only played for one team.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Give it time. There'll be a second team there.
And a third and a fourth.
Yeah. Also, Reggie Wayne, 30th pick in the 2001 NFL draft. So just barely not a second round pick. So I was like 1 or 2 picks away from that being somewhat more realistic. But he also went to Miami. And that's on the way other side from Washington.
Yeah. If he went to Washington University of St. Louis, he'd be closer.
Very true. Very true. But that was a good one. That was a good one. Justin always challenging the old think meet over here between the two of us. So we always enjoy that.
Indeed.
Rick, as I promised, ladies and gentlemen, the Podfather is here. Podfather, how we doing?
What did I do?
No,
Oh.
You're not in trouble. Don't worry.
Oh, hi. Yes, hi. Yeah, I made a chicken Caesar salad. Forgot my wife was, back to work today because she had a bunch of time off. Yesterday was the pod daughter's first birthday, so that was a lot of fun. And yeah, there's never been more pink in my house than there is currently at the moment because of all the gifts that she got and all the paper goods we had to take home because we kind of overestimated how much we bought for the party that we had on Saturday. So I've got maybe enough pink napkins to last me through Christmas and enough pink silverware to last me through next Christmas.
There we go.
Yeah.
If any of the pink forks are like good plastic and sturdy, can you send a pack my way? I need extra plastic forks.
Yeah. Just DM me your address and I'll make sure that I send that up to you. But that might be dangerous for you because if I have your address,
very true.
Who knows?
Very true. More packages from my front door will be thieved by Rick.
Exactly.
From what it seems.
Exactly.
So with that being said, Podfather, do we have? We're ready to move on to the news. But if you have a quick mind blowing fact, we can. But if not, we can take a 1 week hiatus from it.
Do you know that there was a 2023 experimental protest film that was produced, directed, and shot by a guy by the name of Charlie Shackleton. But he filmed it in 2016 to protest against censorship in the UK, and it was released in 2023. The film is 607 minutes in length, which is over 10 hours. And it's literally just a static view of white paint drying on a brick wall. And the movie is aptly known as paint drying. Now, I don't know about you, but if I need to torture somebody, I'm going to put that movie on and just leave them in the room for 10 hours.
Yeah.
And see what happens.
Can I, as between the three of us who have all studied and worked in media in some way between our schooling and then our professional lives for what collectively, like if you separate years between the three of us, like at least between 20 to 30, somewhere in there, probably maybe a little bit more because Rick is the most experienced in media between the three of us. Can I give a bold take real quick? I don't think 7 years was how long it really had to take to get just paint drying for 10 hours. Just my opinion. That feels like shooting that could have been finished in like 2-3 days. I'm just saying.
I don't know. The editing there was award winning though.
It's a glorious. Well, actually, funny story enough though. Also in Europe, this by no means is the longest film ever made, because that goes to the honor of Eric Magnusson and Daniel Andersson, whose 2012 Swedish film called Logistics is a film that was runtime of 35 days and 17 hours, also known as 51,420 minutes. Now, it's actually a pretty interesting story for the idea behind the movie. So, Magnuson and Anderson conceived the idea to follow the production cycle of a pedometer in reverse chronological order, basically from the end of the sale back all the way through to the origin of its manufacturing. So they literally did that in real time. That's why it takes 35 days, because it's like it was sold, that's the start of the movie, and then you go backwards to it being designed and then actually created and manufactured, which is actually a pretty unique concept. It's like that, it's less funny than this, but it's like that Seinfeld episode that they filmed in reverse. If you remember that one, when the wedding in India and when FDR throws the snowball at Kramer. It's like that, but less funny because it was made in Sweden.
Come on.
Boom! Shots fired at the Swedes.
The Nordic region as a whole. I'm sure you've taken a shot at Denmark at some point in the course of the show's history.
Hans Christian Andersen can just, get out of the bin. He's terrible.
And there we go.
I do love the Faroe Islands, though. Go Faroes.
There we go. We're going to go region by region at this point when it comes to offending foreign nations. We started in the UK. We're going into Southeastern Europe in some way, shape, or form, I'm sure. Now we're going to the Nordic region.
Don't forget Kyrgyzstan.
Ah, yes, always Kyrgyzstan.
Yes, always Kyrgyzstan.
I think those countries we could just put Stan at the end. Countries with Stan at the end is its own.
I just kicked Stan.
Oh, good God above, ladies and gentlemen. So, as the chaos, I think, is really in the swing of things at this point because the triumvirate is back together, let's go to the football news. Amazing name that player, and great, mind-blowing fact there, Rick. 35 days for a movie. If this podcast ever gets to a point where it's like, we actually make money off it and it becomes our daily lives, that should be like an ultimate punishment 1 year for like one of us, or we just do it for like all three of us try to watch that movie. See,
no one is actually going to sit there and watch to make sure that someone watched that movie for 10 hours.
I'm not talking about the paint drying one. I'm talking about the 35-day one.
Exactly.
Yeah. So with that being said, let's move on, ladies and gentlemen, to my leg is the reason. The Fred the Fish sponsored injury segment of the show, and with the joke of the show title being my leg. There was a lot of leg injuries in the NFL this past week or so. And like I said at the top, it's a bit unfortunate for us to laugh at it, but we are going to just quickly look at this list that the Popfather so graciously provided earlier on. And just quickly, we'll read through the names in a whirlwind, and we can just kind of for ourselves like slowly go like name by name and like point it out for each team, like how big of a deal it is, right, for these clubs. Although actually, to be fair, this is just an overall injury list. This isn't necessarily just leg injuries, though I'm sure multiple of these guys had leg injuries. So we have to say the least. Yeah. So it's not just the leg, it's the head, the ribs, the neck, the knee, it's everything, if we're being honest.
Well, there was a dark version of this title that we're not going to say because, we don't want to get demonetized, but
are we monetized?
I don't know. But just know that my leg is the safe version for the kids. There is one, if we ever go blue, that'll be a little bit darker.
Yes. Although also, to be fair, there was one other episode title that was put in the recycle bin for the future, because I'm sure this will still somehow be relevant here in a week or two, called 7.8 points per game at home. Think people can figure out which team we're talking about there.
Yeah.
So, there's that. All right. This is the long injury list overall in league. And once again, there are some leg injuries in here. So I will go through their names, boys. And you want me to run through the names, or do we want to hit like piece by piece?
I mean, some of these injuries are a little less severe than others are. So, like the ones that are, I think, more severe are the ones that are like more detrimental to their teams. We can kind of give a little bit more emphasis on, I suppose. But
Yeah.
like the
And-
ones that are just like meh, you can just skip through.
Yeah, and the players and stuff. So I'm going to go reverse order on the list I have here because the names at the top are the big ones to discuss. So I'll go from at the bottom to up.
This includes last night's Monday night's injuries too, right? Or do we?
This is what you sent me. I think this was before the Monday game. So,
okay, because we had some pretty bad ones on Monday too.
Yes, we did. So we'll talk about those as well.
Yeah.
And 2 of them, I think, were leg-related injuries. So look at that,
Yes.
the title. So let's start with just this list, and we'll talk about the Monday Night Football injuries. The poor Buccaneers. Poor Baker. Oh, Lord. All right. Traylon Burks. It's just one of those very unfortunate things for Tennessee where this kid who you're hoping – isn't it just unfortunate that you trade A.J. Brown, you draft Traylon Burks, and it's just – it feels like everything has gone wrong for Tennessee. And this is just the icing on the cake to where any even semblance of development – I'm going to be real with you. I haven't seen a single Titans game this season. Probably not even a single snap. I cannot even tell you if Traylon Burks is doing great or not. Just based on a development perspective. If any Titans fans watch the show, first off, why? And second off, why? Because of how much I've lambasted them over the history of this program.
He's not wrong.
And more so, please let us know, is Traylon Burks actually showing signs this year, or is it just looking like a complete bust of a pick, to say the very least?
Well, stats will say that in 5 games, he made 4 catches for 34 yards this year. So
I think that tells me everything I need to know.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, Will Levis is garbage, but there's that. All right. Big name, DK Metcalf. Unfortunate timing for a Seattle team that the NFC West as a whole, boys? Ebbing and flowing in terms of you have a good week, you have a bad week. You start out 3-0 with Seattle. They drop a couple of games now to some really good teams. They beat the Falcons, which makes the NFC South a bit more competitive here as we look towards the remainder of the season. Well, at least for 2 of the teams, in theory. And then you lose your number 1 wide receiver to a stretch of time. Not fun, all things considered, when that offense had some bad games with him in the lineup. Now we can only imagine without. Now, does that maybe open things up for Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet? Does the running game maybe start to take over a little bit more, as is likely should be the case? We'll see. This is a first-year head coach. This is a first-year coaching staff that's going to be put to the test, right? This is probably the most significant injury this team has dealt with so far this season. So adaptation is the name of the game, right, boys? We'll see how this team ends up adapting to the DK Metcalf injury going forward. And again, a tough NFC West and a very interesting NFC wildcard picture, all things considered. This one, I'll let the Jets fans take over here. Elijah Vera-Tucker and Tony Adams.
Yeah, I mean, the Jets were beset by a few things, right? I mean, first of all, you had that a really horrible Xavier Newman injury too with the neck when he had to get carted off. I think he's okay, which is the best news you could possibly hope for, but that's frightening enough. But again, I mean, Justin, we've talked about this on a number of occasions, but AVT is just so unfortunate that this guy gets hurt all the time, because he has the potential to be a star on this offensive line, and yet every year there's something that gets in his way. And it's another blow for an offensive line that is struggling right now, because, I mean, if you watch the Pittsburgh game and you watch the Buffalo game, they're not giving Rodgers enough time in the pocket. As much as I can't stand Aaron Rodgers, there's that point of he's not getting time in the pocket to do what he has to do. And so you lose him. But then, on the other flip side of the coin, Tony Adams, you mentioned Chuck Clark last week is on IR, and Tony Adams is now hurt. That defense, which was so vaunted, is now getting a little starving for bodies and help there, I suppose. So it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to get into my feelings on the Jets. They're all pretty rough injuries. It is a shame that AVT can't stay healthy, because he seems like to be the only player that can consistently play well.
Yeah,
although we did get a costly penalty at one point. For the most part, he's been pretty solid for them. So
I agree with that.
That indeed. Jalen Hyatt and Cordell Flott. So the Jets and the Giants, not only do they lose together, they lose 2 players at once together.
Yeah.
All great things comes in pairs or threes, they say.
Hyatt's injury is rough, because I think
ribs.
Yeah, but that was because they finally tried to throw to the guy when he wasn't thrown to ever, and tries to make a spectacular catch, and what does he do? He lands on the football, like another case where you just can't get out of your own way, and that's a tough one. Cracked a rib there. That's a tough injury for them, and again, they weren't using him that much, but I mean, still a weapon that they could have had, and not having Flott too in the secondary. It's tough for a Giants team that is struggling to stay in games when you can't score points at home. Just saying.
Yeah, and also then you have a receiver go down there, but you also had a defensive player as well end up going down in Flott, who, young corner, looking fine, but I think it was a groin injury that ultimately ended up being his injury issue. So just not like a Giants team, both New York teams, realistically, just tough first 6-7 games here, and you're not getting any luckier from the injury gods, right? And you just, if I'm a Jets or Giants fan, I'm just begging, can we get something to break our way? And when I say break our way, I don't mean a body part, player, to be very specific. So just really bad luck there for both the New York teams as we have it. Paulson Adebo, this is a big one, boys. The Saints, who Derek Carr already being out now, according to Justin is our personal injury update guy with Derek Carr specifically, and that Derek Carr is projected to potentially return this week.
No, it was announced that he's not played. It's expected Rattler is supposed to start, I believe.
Yeah,
there we go. So another week or two before Derek Carr returns to New Orleans. Take with that information what you will, Saints fans. But Paulson Adebo, good corner on this team, out. Pretty sure out for the year. If it hasn't been officially, a broken femur is going to keep a guy out for a bit. Yeah. So it is just not good things, to say the very least. For the Saints.
Yeah. They lost Rashid Shaheed too.
Yes.
So no Shaheed, no Adebo. Their Pro Bowl center hurt his groin in September. He hasn't come back from IR yet, or McCoy.
Yep.
So they're struggling. And Olave's concussion too. The Saints are trying to find a scrap heap. This is when you want the replacement players to come out of the woodwork. Just for now, just temporarily at least.
And this is really tough for the Saints team when you consider, you mentioned Rashid Shaheed, guy who has had some games this year, right? Had some performances, really starting to maybe show some of that promise that we've seen early in his career here. Paulson Adebo, just a young player in the secondary, that secondary like that. The Saints, this has been a team that for many years now has had to constantly fix its roster, right? And work with the cap, and God bless the salary cap guys in New Orleans, because that has not been, you want to talk about hard jobs in industries, salary cap experts for the Saints for the last 5 years. It's not been easy. I'm sure they've gotten a lot of overtime, to say the very least, because this team has just had to find out way after way. And now you have the two guys here between Adebo and Rashid Shaheed, and like you mentioned, Eric McCoy being out basically since the start of the season. This team was already a bit of the walking wounded. This is slowly becoming a corpse at this point. And it's that thing that they kind of need Derek Carr to come back more than ever. It's almost like they should be wishing he could have been eligible for their game this week, because it's not good. It's not good at all for the team, to say the very least. So unfortunate stuff there for New Orleans. We'll see if they can respond, right? Because this team, the Saints are still going to be an upset heavy team, because they could pull out a game out of nowhere, it seems. So we'll see if they have that potential to do that here in the coming weeks in the short term. Tyler Huntley, Pro Bowler, Braxton Berrios, and Storm Duck, a trio of injuries right there.
Berrios is done for the year. That's torn ACL.
Yep.
Huntley, right shoulder injury, so throwing shoulder. Dolphins do get Tua back this week, but now you're telling me that it's Tua with Tim Boyle as the backup. And again, I've seen this point too. In a free agent class that includes Tannehill and other veteran names, you're on your fourth quarterback because Tua's on a wing and a prayer. And if he gets hurt and you're on Tim Boyle, kiss it goodbye. So it's rough. It's brutal for them. Really brutal.
Justin, the name of the game for the Dolphins for the rest of the season, I think we can all agree, is pretty simple. Make sure Tua doesn't get hurt again. It's as simple as that.
But unfortunately, sometimes you got to rely on the guy to protect himself. And, he didn't. He got hurt on what seemed like a meaningless yard. He had that first down and dove headfirst into the defender to try and get some extra yards. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and play the blame game. It was a freak accident. No one's at fault. He was just playing the game, but it's tough to see how the Dolphins move forward in this situation because this is untenable. I mean, as much as the kid has shown great promise on the field, this is a dangerous situation now. So, and at what point, I understand the risk that they're taking every day when they go out there, whether or not you're Tua Tagovailoa or anyone else. But at one point, you have to turn around and save the person from themselves. I mean, there's got to be a positive decision making here. And I'm not saying now is the time, but when?
Yeah, when, to say the very least, though. We'll be monitoring that. I don't think there's any change of his status for this upcoming game, but within the next week or so, like the projection is Tua is coming back here very soon. And
yes,
I'm sure we could discuss that in more detail when we do get the official, he's coming back for this specific game, to say the very least, and what the opponent will be in that. Moving on, we have Juju Smith-Schuster and Jalen Watson. Juju Smith-Schuster, a hamstring thing, just continuing the poor, rotten run of luck for the Chiefs, which, oh no, boo-hoo, the Kansas City Chiefs, bad luck. Oh, so sad. Anyways, but Juju Smith-Schuster is going to miss time here with a hamstring. And Jalen Watson, I didn't see it was officially confirmed as of the last update, unless it has changed. And if so, it did. But fractured ankle for him, probably out for the year, if we're being honest. If he comes back, medical marvel. But most likely done for the season. So that's minus, again, another team that's minus a receiver, and it's minus a guy in the secondary. Think about this Chiefs team receiver. It's not looked great. That passing attack has been this is probably the worst the passing attack has looked under an Andy Reid coach team in God knows how long. And Jalen Watson, for a team that had to trade one of its star corners from last season, right? Jalen Watson is a guy that you hoped to really help with the team. Hasn't, and now you lose him, right? So just rotten luck there.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely, I would say, probably going to be in the market for something to replace, because again, like you mentioned, L'Jarius Sneed left in free agency to Tennessee, so there was that. And this quarterback room, Trent McDuffie's phenomenal, but he's one guy, can't do it all himself. But as good as he is, so. And you're right, it's weird watching this Kansas City team be 6-0 with how Pacheco's on IR. This wide receiver crew does not look good. Mahomes hasn't looked good, and yet somehow they're figuring out a way to do it. Some will argue it's the refs, but not every game.
No, not every game. It's just that defense as a whole. It's almost like the MVP award needs to just go to an entire side of the ball, because there's not really an individual this year that deserves an MVP award at the moment. I don't think. That's just my take. Again, agree, disagree, whatever it is, but that's just my take on the situation. So there's that. Justin Quay Walker, unfortunately, going down with a concussion for the Packers. That's a Packers team you've definitely, but between the three of us, between the back half of last year and this season, have been not shy about praising them, especially that defense. Quay Walker, a young guy, he's had his ups and downs, but overall is seen as a key part of that defense. And unfortunately, he's a guy that ends up getting a little bit dinged up here. And then another guy, just speaking of important pieces and defensive players as well when it comes to injuries, like Geno Stone, was put on, was set to be injured. From what I saw, it was just a shin bruise, so probably the most tame injury compared to the rest. But what do we think of a couple of these defensive players, Justin, for teams that, like the Packers, their bread and butter is the defense? Losing a linebacker is not ideal, and this Bengals team that's trying to make a run here, one of your key pieces in a Geno Stone, even being hampered by an injury, that's not good for performance.
No, it's not, and it's an issue that is going to hamper both teams. I mean, for the Packers to lose an anchor like they have in the middle of their roster, like Walker, is just devastating. It is, and it's so hard to replace such an important defender in your defense. And you can ask the Bengals that, because frankly, that's probably where they've struggled the most this year. I mean, they've had their struggles on all sides of the ball. Their record is not great, but the offense has been firing on all cylinders, and they've had a lot of issues in their secondary. Losing a guy like Geno Stone, that's gonna hamper you. It's gonna hamper you for a while. So it's gonna be interesting to see how these teams both try and make up for such monumental losses, at least if it's just one game.
Yeah, and the Bengals are being very cautious with Stone, by the way, even though it looked bad when he first got injured against the Browns. Not season-ending, thankfully for their sake, but they're being very cautious with it because I believe he missed practice today, if memory
Yeah.
serves.
Well, he was taken off the field in an air cast.
Yeah.
So they assumed the worst at the very beginning, but then it's turned out to be better. Also for the Packers too, good news for them. Davante Wyatt came back to practice today. He's been out since week 4. So you lose. It's unfortunate you lose one guy to pick up another, but if Wyatt is back on that defensive side of the ball for them, it can somewhat mitigate if you have to lose Quay Walker for a little bit of time because that's a big piece that you have on your front line.
Boys, offensively, we're going back to the offense here for the rest of this list. And also as we continue Tampa with the 2 big injuries for them. Curtis Samuel injured in the Titans game. Pectoral thing is what I believe it was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a guy like this Bills team. Just how poor is the timing for them where you trade for Amari Cooper, right? Wide receiver room has been a question for the Bills this season, especially after they started to have a little bit, of a rough slate of things in some games, right? Games closer. Like that Titans game was very close, and they were probably a player
half, really.
Yeah,
in the first half is more so what I mean, but it's like they were a rally away from this being a really disastrous stretch of the season they could have headed into, but they come back from that. But Curtis Samuel, unfortunately, going down. Just another piece. I'm a big Curtis Samuel guy. I don't know how a team hasn't necessarily figured out how to use him as effectively as they could. I just think his ability in general is just a positive. So the fact that he is now out for a stretch of time, I believe he's another one of these guys from this practice today. Probably unlikely to play this week and maybe after. And you just wait and see. But losing a receiver after you just gain one, kind of like you said, Rick, you lose a guy, you gain a guy. You gain a guy, you unfortunately lose a guy. Is just rotten luck.
Well, I mean, too, with Curtis Samuel, it's unfortunate because somebody was going to be out of the rotation at some point with Amari Cooper coming in, and you never want it to be because of an injury, but that's what it is now. It's Curtis Samuel.
They did cut Marquez Valdez-Scantling when they picked up Amari Cooper also, so now they're almost down a receiver.
MVS got picked up by the Saints, I believe, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, that's tough.
There's that. A couple quarterbacks here. Well, a good amount of quarterbacks here, actually, that got hurt. We're going to talk about these two first, Aiden O'Connell and Jaden Daniels. Aiden O'Connell was broken thumb, if I'm not mistaken, so he's out. The projection was 4 to 6 weeks. Minshew Mania, take it over again, brother.
Wow, they signed somebody else. Desmond Ridder off the Cardinals practice squad. He's back.
Oh, Lord. Shout out Desmond Ridder in the 1 year he had in Cincy in college.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then Jaden Daniels, the rookie sensation, early favorite for the offense. By the way, real quick, back to the Giants, even though we talked about the Jalen Hyatt thing. How unfortunate is it when Malik Neighbors is back in the lineup, they lose Jalen Hyatt? Just Daniel Jones is he keeps losing receiving options, though, which is unfortunate. Anyway, back to the quarterbacks. Jaden Daniels, rookie sensation, right? The kid has some growing pains, obviously, as all rookie quarterbacks have, but he's actually looked pretty good. The talent's there, the skill's been flashed. He's great. An unfortunate rib thing. That's they lost him against the Panthers. Didn't affect the game because it's the Panthers. But this is one of those things, Rick, where now you wonder this Commanders team that has shocked us with a good start they've come out to, right? Some electrifying plays here. Cliff Kingsbury.
I mean,
he's actually, Jane Daniels, whether it's he's helped Daniels helped him a little bit of come see, come saw. Things are working in Washington. Now you lose the franchise quarterback here for we don't have a definitive stretch of time, right? Ribs are always a tricky thing. Ribs, I feel like, are one of those injuries where it's you could technically be rushed back because it's the rib. You think you feel good, one bad hit, it just sucks. So, what do you think of the managing situation that the Commanders are going to go forward with Daniels here?
I like the idea that Dan Quinn has put out in the media, where they want Jaden Daniels to feel 100% comfortable. And if he's anywhere below 100% and he can't do what he does best, they're not going to start him. That's protecting the future of this team. And not for nothing, but Marcus Mariota looked pretty good. I know it was Carolina, but that game could have spiraled really quickly had Mariota not been as effective as he was. So on one sense, you're going to not have the matchup of 1 versus 2 this week because it was Chicago, Washington this week. You're not going to have Williams versus Daniels, the first and second picks. But at the same time, again, you're protecting Jaden Daniels. This has been a surprisingly good Washington team. And This is what we talked about, too, with Washington way back when in the ethers when we were talking about worst to first, where if Daniels got hurt, you needed, Washington doesn't have a bye until very late in this season. So how are they going to manage? And this is life imitating art, basically, as we spoke about. Now you're going to see how they manage, because I think holding Daniels out this week is the right call, even if it means Mariota starts and they don't have the electric offense that they do. Maybe Mariota's good. This is his second chance. Maybe he's got what it takes. Third, fourth, fifth, whatever.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe more third, fourth, fifth.
Yeah. But at the same time, maybe this is the opportunity that he needed to kind of re-step into the fold of being a capable quarterback. I think up until a couple weeks ago, you saw that with Andy Dalton when he led Carolina to their first and only win. So I mean, some of these reclamation projects, if they can get time, and I think Washington's offense is good enough that they can manage it. So I would hold Daniels out. Listen, if he's not 100%, don't risk it. You're 5-2. You're surprised right now, but if you mortgage the future of your franchise to try and win now, and Daniels gets hurt worse, you have an RG3 situation all over again, and that's not what you want. Not in the first year of this new ownership group.
Yeah. Okay, boys. We've said this guy's name a lot over the course of this podcast, his life so far. Because this podcast has ironically been around basically since the entirety of the saga with this individual player so far. Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
So tragic.
Got injured after Deshaun Watson got injured. Real quick on DTR, finger injury for him. I saw something that said that he's not going to need surgery, which is obviously good for him personally. Famous Jameis is going to be the one starting in Cleveland till further notice. Amazing, because Jameis was he was demoted to QB3. Yep. And the same game, Deshaun Watson goes out due to injury. Non-contact play, just rough. A lot of non-contact Achilles injuries for like the last 5-6 years in sports, and that is the case here. Non-contact Achilles thing, out for the season. It's going to be a lot of interesting conversations, and the memes were plenty on this one, boys. Justin, I'll throw it to you first. Deshaun Watson, the injury, the fallout for Cleveland, and what it's looking like for the Browns.
I don't see how the outcome has changed. The outlook has changed. I mean, they really couldn't have been much worse. The defense has been okay, but offensively, they've done nothing. They traded their best offensive player, and they were still kind of bad last week. Although, albeit they were in the game for much of it. But I don't see a difference with Deshaun there and Deshaun not there. I mean, let's face it. I mean, outside stuff aside, this was one of the worst trades of all time and one of the worst contracts of all time. He hasn't played up to what they need him to be. He hasn't played up what they expect him to be. And things are just at an all-time low there. And I don't necessarily know if it's a Deshaun problem. I don't know if it's a coaching problem, because sometimes certain players just don't fit in what you're trying to do. But it hasn't worked out. And him being injured is going to either prove that it's the player or the system. Because now, once again, as you did last year, you're going to have a new player starting. And we're going to see if there's really a difference between Jameis Winston and Deshaun Watson, or if maybe the system that Stefanski is running isn't all that what it's cracked up to be. And all of a sudden, Cleveland is back in a rebuild. Although, I mean, I'm pretty sure they were going that way already.
Yeah. And, maybe is it also just player type when all things considered, because the offense looked pretty good under general elite Joe Flacco last year. And
at times. But that defense is what kept them in games.
100%. So it should be interesting. By the way, $92 million over 2025 and 2026 for Deshaun Watson in guaranteed money. I mean, can't say we feel sorry for Cleveland, the organization, with the decision they made. Rick, Justin kind of said everything for the on-the-field perspective. What do you think this changes when it comes to, like Justin mentions, like the scheme and all that? What do you think this does to like psyche for the Browns in terms of the locker room now that Jameis is going to take over? And we assume DTR should get another crack at it whenever he is able to come back from his injury as well. What does it do? Especially like I'm sure you both saw the clips as well, like Browns fans cheering when Watson got hurt, and the reaction from Myles Garrett and Jameis Winston to commenting about the fans and their reactions.
Don't forget LeBron. LeBron also
That's right, he did.
Stuck his nose out on Twitter, and
I didn't see it until yesterday, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna fight the urge to say what I truly want to say because I'm gonna take this on a more professional route here. Just to be, because I could say a bunch of things because you know how I feel about him, but let's go over your question mark. Here's the thing. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, for everything he is, he's also looked completely overwhelmed and overmatched in the NFL in his time. So you have to start Jameis Winston because you have to get through the end of the season. And this Browns team that was such a surprise last year, that was a 5 seed with 11 wins, coach of the year, mighty Joe Flacco, lightning in a bottle. The season's over. They're done. So now the question becomes, what do you do with the rest of your squad? Because they already traded away Amari Cooper. So you know that Deshaun Watson's contract is still going to be on the books. You need to get rid of some space, have some dead cap. You're going to have to get a quarterback next year in this team. I don't know who it is, but you're going to have to get a quarterback. Who's going to want to come to Cleveland? I don't know. But maybe this is a trade. This is something that starts off with Zadarius Smith going somewhere. Maybe somebody else gets moved that has a big contract. But the Browns are in shambles because no quarterback. It seems like their running back room is a revolving door because Nick Chubb was hurt. Jerome Ford was starting. Then Jerome Ford got hurt. Then it was Pierre Strong. Then Ford came back. Now he's hurt again. And Chubb is back, but Chubb isn't what he's – like the Browns are a one-trick pony right now, man, right? They only have – they're only going to run at you with Chubb because they don't really have a lot of weapons on the wide receiving core. And, David Njoku, for what he is, he's not going to do a whole lot. Defense, great, but as we saw – when the defense tires or when they're in these long slogs, they're not going to do well because there's no offense picking them up. So this is a Browns team that's in a lot of trouble this year. And again, it's all monetary. You can do some cap gymnastics and get some room and maybe try and shed more contracts because you can't shed Watson's contract, unfortunately. No one's going to touch him. You can release him, but he's still on the books, but no one's going to touch him. Not after the injuries, not after the off-the-field sagas. So you're stuck with this. So you got to bring in a rookie quarterback next year. You have to hope that Jameis Winston is able to stand upright until Week 18 at this point because you don't have another option. DTR doesn't give you a chance to win because he's just so overmatched. It's like Tommy DeVito when he first was on that field. He's just a deer with nervous ankles standing in the middle of the headlights on the I-95, man. It's brutal. So, look, that's what it is. So we now know that in the running for the number 1 overall pick, Cleveland has joined Carolina because Carolina's not any good. Now Cleveland, unfortunately, is getting worse. So I think that's where they are. Will it cost these guys their jobs? I don't think so. I think Stefanski has earned enough cred to be okay, where this is a year that they'll just wash away from the books and let him go next year with everyone healthier. I think the same for the GM. I think it's DePodesta. I think he's fine. I think this is a year you can wash away. But I feel like you just got to accept it. It's over in Cleveland, man. It's done. Believeland, no chance.
Browns GM is Andrew Berry, by the way.
Paul DePodesta is, I think, like the football operations guy or something like that.
Probably. He probably has a role some way, shape, or form in terms of football decisions there. It's like you said, could say a lot of different things about the Deshaun Watson thing, but we will keep it the professional way. You don't really root for guys to get hurt.
No.
Just a tough thing, non-contact. If anything, could this almost be the way where Watson is not hide from it? That's not the word that I'm trying to say here, but he's going to miss the rest of the season. Obviously, he has to rehab. Boom, boom. We'll see what the timeline is for what the start of next year will be for him. Could this almost be a way, if you're Deshaun Watson, and I'm just asking the question like open-ended, doesn't need to be answered immediately. Can you use this as maybe this is what it will take for him to really go back and take the whole playbook? Because like Justin said, maybe it's just a schematic thing that they're still not getting used to. Can this be used as working with him in the background? Maybe these things that they've noticed to this point, can they finally work on some of that in the background? He's not starting, he's not playing poorly. And then next year, we could see a complete new Deshaun Watson. That's the only slim glimmer of hope, I think, that you could take if the Browns, because it's really like you're going to be stuck with the guy. Let's just be, you're going to have to work with him. You paid him all the money, the first ever fully guaranteed quarterback contract that goes to this guy. Like, you have to live with that, and you have to make the best of it. I'm just saying, if you're a Browns fan hoping for the best for your organization, you need to hope that maybe cooler heads prevail. And like Rick said, I think Stefanski and Barry should get one more year from this, because I just think it's a lot of bad luck right now, in part because of the Watson contract and that decision. But see if this could be reworked for 2025, right? That to me, like, to give the Browns fans hope, that's all I could come up with, to be fully honest with you. Like, that's the thing you could hope for, is that maybe they could work things out in the background. Maybe Stefanski and Watson could pick each other's brain a little bit more and be like, okay, what has worked out? What do you think could be replaced? Like, I think Kevin Stefanski could be amenable when it comes to fixing things to work with Watson better. And maybe they need that time off the field to do that. Just football guys talking football, right? You know, I'm sure Deshaun Watson was cool like that pre-2021. I don't know about post, but pre-2021 at least. So we'll see. But that's the best case scenario you could hope for if you're the Browns, right? So, yeah. All right. Receivers also got hurt, boys. Brandon Ayuk. This is a tough one. New contract this past offseason, was a key part of the San Francisco 49ers. Has been a key part for them ever since he was drafted, and they developed him so well. Big performances last year for the team. Probably, if they had targeted him a couple more times in that Super Bowl last year, we would be saying that the Niners are the defending champions, not the Chiefs. But what do we always say on the show? If ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all be a lot happier. Not the case. He goes down in the most brutal goddamn way possible for the San Francisco 49ers, just because the team has been dealing with all these injury issues so far to start the season. And now you have a guy who you paid to be your number one, relatively speaking, your number one all-around receiver, and now just a torn ACL. How do you recover is what you have to ask. Like, Rick, what this 49ers team, Kyle Shanahan has proven time and again in the past, not even just with the Niners, like, he can pluck guys, and he can make a running back that's not named Christian McCaffrey have 80, 90, 100 yards in the game. He can get wide receivers decent production. I think a lot is starting to be thrown on his plate. And are we at that point? I'll throw it to you first, Rick. Are we at that point where this is about to become too much for San Fran to overcome?
Well, you don't have McCaffrey for a few more weeks. You don't have Ayuk at all for the rest of the season. Debo was out with, like, you want to say pneumonia-like or flu-like, something like that.
It was pneumonia.
Yeah, so that wasn't spectacular. So, and they didn't have Jawan Jennings, so that meant that they were down to Ricky Pearsall and Ronnie Bell and Chris Conley, and they're not getting the guy who was traded today, which we'll talk about a little later. And so, and Jordan Mason's banged up, and Brock Purdy looked like Mr. Irrelevant. So I think the Niners are in a bit of trouble here. I do. And maybe that's when they'll swing for the fences and get another big name in this offense. But not having Brandon Ayuk is just awful. It is. This is one of those injuries where it's like you wish it didn't happen, and you wish you didn't see it live, because it was brutal to watch live. But I will say this: if anybody can make chicken salad out of what, it's Kyle Shanahan. He can find a way to turn this around and make this better. I don't know how. Maybe George Kittle, clones himself and becomes two tight ends. But San Fran will figure out a way. I mean, if anything, this now opens the door for Seattle and Arizona, who are ahead of San Francisco in that division. This opens the door for them. If they can capitalize on this and get a little bit of distance between them and San Fran before the next time they got to play them, this might make this NFC West a little more interesting. And that team that was a possession away for winning the Super Bowl might not even make the playoffs this year. So it's questionable. It's tough.
Justin, similar thing to you in regards to San Fran?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough situation. I mean, of their top 4 pass catchers right now, the healthiest one hasn't played a game yet and was shot 3 months ago.
Yeah.
So that's not great. I mean, he's expected to start his first game next week. We wish the kid all the best. You know, he's supposed to be a really good player, but Debo's in the hospital. Kittle went down with another injury last week as well, and Ayuk is done for the year. So it's going to be an interesting thing to see how this team goes forward. I mean, even their backup running back is week to week with a sprained AC joint. He played last week. He played pretty well, but, you know, they lost to the undefeated Chiefs, and they're 3-4 right now. It's an unexpected 3-4, but they've had trouble closing out games. They just haven't been the same team this year. They've had a lot of injuries. I think, what is it, like 7 of their opening day starters are not playing this week because of injury?
I'm shocked it's only 7, honestly.
Yeah. It's on offense and defense. So, like, it's a lot to overcome. At this point, I'm not necessarily rushing back Christian McCaffrey. You know, I'm not sure where you go from here, but I know if they can stay relevant and that defense can keep them strong and in games, then it's going to be interesting to see what happens when this team starts to get a little healthier.
Yeah, and they'll need it because right now they've fallen 3rd into the division off the fact that the Cardinals won on Monday night, and I believe if the Rams win tomorrow night, because they're playing Thursday Night Football, if the Rams win tomorrow, I think San Fran falls to 4th.
Well, don't forget also that Arizona has the head-to-head so far over San Fran.
The Rams as well, right? Did the Rams
as well? Yeah.
So this is, if you're a San Francisco fan, you're praying for an LA loss tomorrow.
This is interesting. Yeah.
Okay. Last big 2 injuries to really talk about. Both happened to wide receivers. Unfortunate circumstances for both of them. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin both getting hurt in the Monday night game because we had a Monday night doubleheader this past week. In the Ravens-Buccaneers game, Cade Otton could have honestly joined them because I was watching that game and he was getting rocked on some plays. Like Kyle Hamilton and Roquan Smith both hit him hard. The fact that he got up on both of those, let's just give a quick salute to Cade Otton. You are a man of steel considering those 2 guys hit you. But less fortunate is Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Both guys getting hurt. Evans was trying to haul in a pass. I think trying to haul it in the red zone, if I'm not mistaken. And just landed awkwardly. I think it was his hamstring he immediately grabbed. He was able to walk off the field on his own power. So we'll see what the case is there. Mike Evans, one of the most durable. Like we talked about a bunch of supremely talented skill position players over the course of this podcast, and Mike Evans is one of the guys that Rick has been a big proponent of, criminally underrated, honestly, not talked about enough in terms of his stats that he's put up because of the consistency. And part of that consistency is the dude just doesn't miss time, which is amazing, all things considered, with some of the quarterbacks that had thrown to him in his career. He's had the good and the great and Tom Brady. He's also had the 30 interceptions with Jameis Winston. So there's that. And various other backup QBs as the years have gone on. Fitzmagic. But that's just tough for Mike Evans. I don't think there's too much to worry about just from the perspective of week to week type deal. So he'd be the one that's more likely to come back sooner rather than later. Chris Godwin is just unfortunate because I was talking about this Monday night actually because I was working and I was with an editor. And if I was building a team, boys, and I already have my number 1 receivers set up, I would pick Chris Godwin for my number 2 in a heartbeat. Because that is the perfect complement receiver to me when you have a number 1. Does everything right. Runs every single route. Mr. Consistent. if your number one guy has an off game, I think Chris Godwin is like the premier number 2 receiver who can make up for your number one guy if he's having an issues in a game. And it's very unfortunate that he gets hurt. I think the early signs was an ankle dislocation from what I saw. It's going to be confirmed here soon enough. Probably at least 2-3 months, if not the rest of the season, considering we're almost halfway there. This is extremely damaging to a Tampa Bay team. That Atlanta suffering that big loss to Seattle, you lose this to Baltimore. More importantly, you lose these two guys who have had such a rapport with Baker Mayfield going back to last season. That damages a lot of things. Justin, to you, like Tampa weathering the storm here. How are they going to do that? How big is it now going to be on Baker? The pressure on Baker of the performances that he's still going to have to put up if this team is expecting to win without who have been his top 2 guys going back to last season.
Well, it's going to be hugely on Baker. I mean, he's going to have to find something there, anything. It's not going to be It's not going to be an easy thing for them. They're going to have a tough schedule coming up. We all know how he loves to find his tight ends. Kate Otten had a very good game last week, in spite of everyone going down. But now they play a divisional game home against the Falcons, which they're down a game because they lost to them last time. They're in Kansas City. They're home against a hungry Niners team. And it lightens up a little bit after that, but it's really not going to be an easy stretch. We don't know. We don't know who's going to be available for them. I mean, is Sterling Shepard going to be the guy that steps up? Trey Palmer wasn't done much for them so far. They have Jalen McMillan, but none of these guys are Mike Evans, who's going to be a Hall of Famer, or Chris Godwin, who's had an excellent career. He's got a couple more years ahead of him. The thing that people aren't talking about is this: we might have seen the last game for Chris Godwin in a Buccaneers uniform. He's a free agent after this year, and this is a major injury. We don't know the long-term effects of such a serious injury at this point. So he might be in a new uniform next year if he plays at all. Yeah. So it's a devastating week for a team that had playoff aspirations. And like you guys said in the group chat earlier, this is now a wide open division.
Yeah. Mike Evans is out until at least week 11. That means that he's missing these 3 next games against the Falcons, the Niners, and the Chiefs. And then they're on bye, and then they have the Giants out of the bye. But they do not have the head-to-head against the Falcons. If they pull out a win this week against Atlanta, that's huge. But if you are telling me that this is a Tampa team that doesn't have its top 2 receiving options and is down 0-2 in the division to Atlanta, and then has to play San Francisco and Kansas City after that, they'll be lucky to go 1-2 in this 3-game stretch without those 2 guys. Lucky. Can they do it? Probably. I can see them knocking off a San Francisco maybe, or a little surprising here, but no. This is the blow. And for Todd Bowles to say we're comfortable with the guys that we have behind Evans and Godwin, that we don't need to go and get somebody. I think if you're the Glazer family, that's we're going to fire Todd Bowles at the end of the season, because that's pretty dumb. Pretty dumb. So, yeah, it's rough. It's a rough go of it. So,
all right. Think I hit on everything right. Any injuries I'm missing, boys?
No, you're good.
All right. That was our extensive Fred the Fish sponsored injury segment. Ribs, backs, groin, my leg. Many. Those last 3 were all leg injuries. Actually, the last 4, technically, with Watson, were all leg injuries that we discussed. So look at that. The episode title rings true, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Let's go from guys who are going to miss time off the field to guys who are playing on the field, and a lot of them in new threads. Lots to talk about with the wide receiver market here. I was telling Justin and saying this at the start of the episode, Rick, before you came on, that was our episode, despite the fact it was such a poor post / article from CBS Sports, was our episode the catalyst of trade discussions to all this kicking off, because all the trades happened after we talked. I'm just saying. You guys talked about the Amari Cooper and Davante Adams deals last week, in particular, just in terms of like the concept of both deals. Now both guys have played and they debuted. Let's talk about those real quick. The traded and have played for their new team receivers before we get to the recently traded man himself and the potentially traded man. Thoughts on the debuts, Rick? I'll throw it to you. Thoughts on the debuts of Amari Cooper and Davante Adams. Cooper caught a touchdown for the Bills in his game. Adams, pretty sure scoreless if I'm not mistaken. In that Steelers game. So, your thoughts on both guys and what they early returns? Obviously, it's one game, but early returns for both teams with those two.
I mean, you could have asked for a better debut from Cooper, to be honest, but still caught a touchdown, still had a better debut than Adams did. Amari Cooper fits into that Bills offense really nicely. He really does. And I think that when the time comes that, he'll be go back to being a multi-touchdown weapon, it's going to be thrilling for Buffalo and for Josh Allen to have that guy there. It's going to be like they had Diggs all over again. So I think that was a really good trade by them. Davante Adams, look, phenomenal player. Don't get me wrong. Think it's a really good signing by the Jets. But this game against the Steelers showed you that this is a team that needs more than just offense. It needs more than just Aaron's buddies. They need help all over the place. For you to give up 31 consecutive points to Russell Wilson and Pittsburgh, I mean, it's not good. And I know Justin's done talking Jets, and I agree. But I'm just going to say, if Davante Adams can help them out, great. But all it's going to do is make the score line a little more interesting than it is a little less embarrassing, I suppose. But again, I think if you're the Bills, you lost Curtis Samuel, but you have Amari Cooper right there, and he slots in real nicely. Caught his first touchdown in, the end of that Titans game when I needed them to be there, and he was there. And listen, there's a reason why Buffalo is now 2.5 games up on Miami in the division, maybe 3.5 on the Jets. This is the Bills' division to lose, and adding Amari Cooper was the right call for them. I think Adams was the right call for the Jets, but it's not paying the dividends that you expect right away because this offense is just inept. This offense couldn't fight its way out of an escape room if they had the key in their hands. They
had the answer written out for them.
Yeah, exactly. The door is open. It's like, here's the exit. They're like, huh?
Justin, I know you don't really want to talk too much Jets, so you don't have to if it just pains you. But Cooper at the bare minimum, like Rick mentioned, caught a touchdown. I think I forget which of the NFL football related IG pages put it, but it's funny. It on the line of scrimmage, before that play, one of the other Bills receivers,
Keon Coleman.
Yes, it was Coleman who was just telling Cooper where you exactly have to be or what route you have to run or whatever. It was really funny, to say the least. That was good stuff. So Cooper and what he did for Buffalo so far, Justin, that you're seeing, that's tangible.
Yeah, it was a great trade. It's gonna be scary to see when he actually gets his legs under him and he learns the playbook, because obviously it's not a playbook he's used to. He had to learn some things. He's an excellent talent, and he's going to slot in no matter what. And I think that he slots in perfectly as their number one receiver. You saw the effect it had on Keon Coleman, who had a career game last week when they really needed yards and stuff like that, especially in the fourth quarter to put that game away. He came up with a few big catches that really, really put that game out of reach for Tennessee. So it's going to be a scary duo for them for a long time, I guess. And we'll see what the contract slayed out to be, because I think Cooper is in the last year of his deal.
Last or second to last.
I don't remember exactly, but it was a good trade. The Jets are a bad football team. It doesn't really matter who you have on your roster, no matter how good they are, whether or not they're a future Hall of Famer, whether or not they're a young stud. If you're a bad football team, and I'm struggling to find any bright spots. I mean, in a game that you needed to have, to come out, as Rodgers called it, flat, is inexcusable. It's inexcusable for the coaches. It's inexcusable for the leaders in the locker room. It's inexcusable for the players. It's inexcusable for rookies to come out in a game and perform like that. I mean, that game turned around very quickly. There was a point where the Jets were driving down the field with 2 touchdowns, and it was 15-6, and they could have made it at the very least 18-6 with a field goal if they would have kept driving down the field and then gotten the ball back in the second half. They could have blown that game open, wide open, after halftime. Instead, they throw a quick interception. They drive down the field. Actually, they don't drive down the field. They basically take the interception all the way almost into the end zone. It's now 15-12 or 13.
Mm-hmm.
Immediate stop after halftime, and all of a sudden the Steelers put up a whole bunch of unanswered points. It's inexcusable. I don't care how many people you have on your team that are injured. I don't care how many people you have on your team that had bad games. This is the 3rd game in a row where Rodgers has had 3 interceptions. No, that's not true. He only had 1 in the Bills game. But he's thrown an interception in 3 straight games, which is completely unlike Aaron Rodgers that we've all known in the NFL. And again, I'm struggling to find a single area in which this team has been positive. I mean, really, they're not. They have some good receivers, but they don't lead the league in catches. They don't lead the league in yards. They don't lead the league in reception touchdowns. They don't lead the league in. They're not top 5 in the league in rushing. They're not top 5 in the league in pass. I mean, are they even top 15 in the league in any of these categories? What about on defense? I mean, they had a top 5 defense the first few games, but they've been figured out. Teams know they could run the ball on them, and all of a sudden, now that they have the secondary come up, they're thin, which is not really an excuse, but they're thin because they still have sauce and they still have some good players back there. And then all of a sudden, guys are running free over the top. And some of the plays were unlucky. Freiermuth made an amazing catch. Pickens made an amazing catch. They both had really good games, but there is not a single area in which this team is really good. There's not really a single area where this team is okay. And at this point, it's got to be unacceptable. They got Hassan Reddick back this week, but who cares? Really? Who cares? They traded for Davante Adams. Who cares? There's no identity. There's no team. These guys aren't working together. There's a bunch of individuals. They won one really shitty blowout. Let's face it. It was a shitty blowout. It was one of the ugliest blowouts I've ever seen. And the Patriots should be more embarrassed than the Jets because realistically, the Jets didn't look all that good that game. And I know the Patriots had some injuries dealing with that. But, I'll put 3 in the square jar, Jerk. That was a shitty game. It was a terrible game, and they still won 24-3. So,
sure.
Again, I'm out of excuses. I'm out of guesses. I'm out of hope. There is nothing that we see here that has been positive, that has a positive spin. There's the young players are okay. They're not winning you games at this point. The older veterans, they're not showing any leadership. They're not winning you games. There's nothing here that shows that there will be a positive move for the Jets on going forward. The coaching stinks. The level of play on the field stinks. It seems like the attitude stinks. And like I said a couple weeks ago, the circus is back in town. And we're back to the same old Jets.
Jets do rank 23rd in the NFL in offensive yards per game, 6th best defense. But again, that's the telltale sign. We knew coming in.
Defensive yards or defensive points?
Yeah. We knew coming in.
They're 6th in yards or points?
6th in yards allowed. Yeah.
It's easy to be so low in yards allowed when the average starting position is on your own side of the field because you keep turning the ball over.
Of course. But there was a point at halftime, like you said, at halftime it was 15-13 after the Pickens touchdown. The Jets were still leading at halftime. And then it was touchdown, field goal, touchdown for Pittsburgh. Like there was no stopping them. If Aaron Rodgers thought that he gave Andrew Van Ginkel a Christmas present with that pick 6 in London against Minnesota, then what the hell do you call giving Beanie Bishop, an undrafted free agent, 2 interceptions in that game?
He played well. So that first interception,
yeah,
is I think a little bit on Rodgers just because he hung it up just enough for him to get a finger on it, which altered the trajectory and is why it hit Garrett in the shoulder as opposed to the chest. And as minimally as it moved, everyone and their grandmother knows the second that ball is not where you expect it to be as the receiver, it's almost impossible to catch. Yeah. So, and by the luck of the bounce, it landed in the kid's arms and he had a great return.
Yeah.
One of them was bad. That one at the end of the half. I mean, it was, don't get me wrong, a great snag, but he threw that into triple coverage.
Yeah.
Triple coverage. And all the receiver had to do, all the defender had to do was this.
No, the receiver didn't go to the red line. That's what it was.
Well, no, look, listen, I don't necessarily think that Rodgers was lying or blaming or whatever, passing the buck. I mean, it's a team game. He knows that. But there was nothing there, dude.
No, there wasn't.
There was not a single thing where, I mean, there was one drive that was okay. And then I forget exactly the second touchdown drive was. But, I mean, even stuff. When was the last time the Jets strung 2 back-to-back touchdown drives together? Has it happened yet this year?
I think it hasn't happened since Pennington or Sanchez. Maybe it's been a while. But even to your point, you talk about they have good receivers. Who was the leading receiver for the Jets in the Sunday night game? Brees.
Yeah, well,
Brees
had that one catch.
Yards.
Yeah, that's because he had that one catch.
But still, like you talk about, you have these prolific receivers. You have Lazard, who's playing okay, Wilson, who was a rookie of the year, and Davante. And who's your leading receiver? Brees.
Yeah, but I, as much as you're not wrong about that, Brees is a dynamic enough player that it's not unheard of for him to lead your team in receiving in a game.
No, I'm more expressing that to the point of like you're giving him, he's dynamic, I agree, but you're giving him more of the shouldering the load because your receivers can't get open because you don't have the time in the pocket, but also you're throwing the ball in the triple coverage, like you were saying. It's not helping.
Look, let's call a spade a spade. It's not like Brees led the team in receiving because he had this great receiving game. Right? Yeah. He had one catch that went for like 60 yards.
Yeah.
That's the only reason.
Yep.
That's it. Yeah, he had one catch that went for 57.
Yep.
And he did catch the ball 6 times. He led your team in receptions too, which is a little messed up, but I guess that the only thing they could do was a dump off.
Yeah.
So, it's.
And also, Xavier Gibson should not be fielding punts anymore. I'm sorry.
Because he dropped like 3 of them?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry. No, he only fumbled 2 of them.
Well, I mean, there was a muff. Yeah. I mean, give me somebody else. I'll even ask for freaking Solomon Thomas to go back there and field punts down at this point. Give me a 300-pound punt returner and watch what happens.
Braxton Berrios on one leg is probably better for the Jets at this point.
Oh, come on now. Come on now.
You didn't say I'm wrong. There we are.
Jim Abbott is better than Xavier Gibson at this point. One arm, he can catch it and run.
By the way, just one last note for me on Amari Cooper. Because Rick, you've talked about Mike Evans being Mr. Consistency. Amari Cooper, projected if he doesn't get hurt, going to go over the 10,000 career receiving yards mark this season. He's a little bit under it, and like 7 1,000 yard receiving yard seasons in his career. Mm-hmm. So just that level of consistency, real quick, to just tie it all back to Buffalo. And I don't have too much to say about Adams. I feel like I said everything about him a couple weeks ago, and I think you guys put it all perfectly, both in this episode and last week. We've talked about what he can do for the Jets, but also like he alone is not going to make a difference. So it's kind of like Justin said. I think it's going to be its attitude, I think, is the biggest thing. I think that's something that sometimes gets discounted. And I'll give Pat McAfee, he doesn't need a shout out, technically speaking, but like, he deserves like a mood of praise because Pat, I feel, is one of the few guys that mentions like attitude and mentality in the locker room. He brings that up more often than I think most care to in terms of like how important it can be for a team. I think that's the big thing with the Jets right now. It's like that mentality and attitude, like Justin has said, to not take plays off, to treat every possession like it's not do or die, but
They're
to the
not a team.
utmost importance. They're not a team.
Damian Woody went on Get Up the day after. And I don't know if we're allowed to mention other shows and things like that, but
We can.
he and Rex tore into the Jets. And every word that they said was 100% true. One tore into the roster because he refused to call them a team. And the other one tore into the coaching staff. And he said, I know that it's not a fair position, but let's face it, you're doing a terrible job and you are not holding people accountable. And the very least you can do is come in and set a standard and say, this is how we act. This is what we do. I can make mistakes on the sideline. I could do it. You shouldn't, don't get me wrong. But the very least you could do is have your players prepared and ready to play the game. And firing Robert Saleh doesn't seem like that changed anything. If anything, they've had way less energy since.
Yeah. Who, by the way, joining the Green Bay Packers staff here in a fluid coaching role is what I saw.
Great.
He's a great defensive coordinator.
100%.
And he's an exciting coach, and the players love him, and he knows the game. But I don't know.
Woody Johnson may have really sunk the Jet season by not giving Saleh a couple weeks here. Say the very least.
There was no right answer. Like I said, I wouldn't have fired Saleh at that point, but I understand why the move was made.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point in the season, you were severely undermanned, overwhelmed, and not playing good football. You looked like the most unprepared team in football for 5 weeks. You had a chance to go now and take this mixed roster of aging veterans and young talent and take a lead in the division against the Bills. And they played hard, and they were in that game till the end. But that was the time to say, if we're having a restart, it's now. Because guess what? If they do the same, let's say Saleh's still there and they go through the exact same thing, and now he's fired this week. Well, now all of a sudden your season's over. You're 2-5.
You know, it's interesting to me to think about this because something that you said stuck out to me, and I know we got to move on, but I wonder if the move of putting Ulbrich as the interim head coach also helped suck the energy out, because now that he's overseeing everything, like I would have almost given Brant Boyer, the special teams coordinator, the job instead. Fire Hackett, fire Saleh, keep Ulbrich as your DC, put Downing as your OC, and give Brant Boyer the shot because he's been there since 2016. So he knows Jets culture. So, I mean,
that should automatically disqualify you. What about the Jets culture since 2016 makes you think like that dude deserves a shot?
Well, the only thing that I'm saying is he's been in the same role since 2016. Like, what does he know? What skeletons does he know in Woody Johnson's closet that have allowed him to stay in this job for almost 9 years?
I want to know how he survived. What was that? 4 head coaches?
Yeah. Holy hell.
Well, you know what? They could have called Salalosi back, but he's tripping everybody left and right still. So, you know.
So like I said, there's nothing positive to say about this team. I wish I could turn around and be like, all right, well, they lost, but like the defense played well. No, or they lost, but the position group on the defense played well. I mean, these guys, as talented as they are, they're not a team.
No.
And they're not. And if you wanted to even make the argument that they were a team, they're not a good team. Like we said, 6th in total defense, in total yards on defense, doesn't say much when you're turning the ball over at that clip.
Yep.
And they're not great at stopping teams from scoring. They're not great in crunch time. It's not like they're making clutch plays. I mean, I'm sorry, when they needed a stop against the Broncos, what receiver was running free in the end zone? Just completely free, unguarded? Was it their best receiver, the only receiver basically that they've had the last 5 years? That's been pretty much one of the better receivers in the league, even though he hasn't had a quarterback in 5 years, in Cortland Sutton?
Yep.
Right.
There's also been in trade rumors, by the way.
Did I drop him from my fantasy team, by the way? I think I might have.
When they needed a stop for when they needed to play for the Bills.
Yeah.
Against the Bills. Was that another game-ending interception for the second week in a row?
I mean, of course.
I mean, this time at least it happened before halftime. And this way I got to leave where I was in the fourth quarter. I didn't have to watch that abomination.
I mean, yeah, you know.
But like, there's nothing positive going on about this team.
No, there isn't.
And as a Jets fan, I'm tired.
I mean, the only positive thing that I could say going into this week is that, like, you really can't lose to this Patriots team, can you?
Would you be
We'll
surprised
see.
if the Jets found a new rock bottom?
I mean, no, it wouldn't.
'Cause let me tell you, this defense this Patriots team that you played against was missing 2 of their starters on their defense. Was missing a couple of offensive linemen,
Yep.
and was having a Ramondre Stevenson that was struggling.
Yep.
Now all of a sudden the Jets are worse against the run that they've been all year. They
Yep.
are now shorter in secondary. They are now playing a better defense. And oh yeah, it's now in New England. And they're playing against a team with nothing to lose who just got called out by their head coach.
Yep. And a team that, by the way, is actually better than them on the turnover ratio. New England is -1.
And
Jets are -3.
a new young rookie quarterback who's played 2 pretty good games. Not the same quarterback that they played the first time.
Yeah, Drake May has been pretty good, actually. Yeah.
And you're talking about a Jets team that came out in a must-win game, a game that everyone knew was a must-win game, as a self-proclaimed flat team. What about this team makes you think that they could beat any team on any even? I don't care that they blew them out when Jacoby Brissett was playing quarterback. I don't. It makes no difference to me. I have no faith that this team can go in to New England and win a game. I'm not saying that they're definitely going to lose, but I have no faith that this team is going to go into New England and win a game.
No, I have no faith in Greg Zuerlein anymore either, because he's
They
just,
have not done anything well.
They show nothing. And it's funny. Like you look at the rest of this conference, and you say to yourself, well, at least it can't get any worse. And what happens this week? DeAndre Hopkins is a Kansas City Chief now, so great.
Tua comes back.
Tua's back. DeAndre Hopkins is on Kansas City. It's just like,
I mean, they were never beating Kansas City to begin with at this rate.
But what I'm saying is that, like, you wanted to talk about this team this year, and if all things were being equal and all things were being right, then you would have added Davante Adams to a team that was 5-1 or 5-2, and then you were talking about aspirations and everything, and you added Davante Adams as the Zac Efron in the Hugh Jackman P.T. Barnum Greatest Showman circus, basically. God, if Aaron Rodgers starts singing Greatest Show, I'm gonna throw something out of a window at this point.
Yeah,
but
I mean, realistically, again, like I've been saying, they were gifted that Titans game.
Yeah, oh yeah.
They could have very well been 1-5 right now.
Oh yeah.
The only win I'm not going to take from them is that New England game, because even though it was an ugly blowout, it was still a Jets win.
Yep.
And I just noticed that low-key a Jets podcast thing. You're right at this point because I just took over. But yeah, you thought you were going to bring up the Jets 3 times and me not lose my shit after this week? 4. There you go. 4. All right.
Boy. Oh boy, there we are.
And I'm being tame. I am restraining myself.
We know. Justin,
Right.
we know.
Stay tuned, everyone, for Sports Agents of the Cast. Justin Goes Blue.
Wait, hold on. But before, because I'm making an executive decision, we're going to move on. But this is essentially what has been the last 15, 20 minutes of the show.
Yes, it has been. Yes, it
I
has
knew it was
been.
coming.
Stoked by me. I've been adding fuel to this fire. Yeah, of course.
The hatred hootenanny hullabaloo. I love it.
All
All right. Let's move on to the other.
I apologize
two
for
here.
commandeering. Let's continue.
You're good. DeAndre Hopkins. Last season,
And the thing about the Jets, no, okay, go on.
DeAndre Hopkins, 1,000 receiving yards last season, 7 touchdowns as well. He actually looked like he had a little bit of football left in him last year. Only 1 touchdown this season, but as Justin honestly made note of once or twice in his rant there, Will Levis, not a good quarterback. Tennessee Titans, not a good team. So DeAndre Hopkins gets traded to, ironically, the team we all thought of he should have signed with before last season, or at least the team we all pegged for him to potentially sign with, the Kansas City Chiefs. He gets traded there for not a lot. First off, side note, and maybe we'll bring this team, I think, up for more discussion next week, especially if they lose this game coming up this week for themselves. But the fact that these receivers are being traded for not the highest price tag, and the Dallas Cowboys are doing nothing, just saying it's pretty funny, all things considered, considering Jerry Jones went on the show for the last week, went on a radio show for the last week. So not this show. I would love if we could ask Jerry Jones questions. It'd be the funniest thing, I think. But Jerry Jones going on a radio show.
Come on our show.
Look, we could dream. We have to have an actual NFL.
Someone send him a DM tonight. Let's see if we can get him next week.
We have to have an actual NFL personality on the show at some point. Sure, it'll happen.
Yeah,
probably not, but we could dream. Anyways, so like him being on like a radio show because like they were bugging him about the roster, and he's just like, "You all don't understand. It's harder than you think when it comes to trading for guys, and all these guys just get traded for like 5th and 6th round picks. Dallas has plenty. Dallas, you have 4ths, you have a 3rd. You do something."
Yeah, but those picks are reserved for those SEC linemen that are just deep in the ethers that are the good old country boys. You know that's what they'll hold on.
Look at the Jets, man. You think a trade for DeAndre Hopkins is going to solve their problems right now?
I'm not saying it would solve it, but I'm just saying
lots of problems on defense. Their offensive line isn't what it used to be. They don't have a running game anymore. There's a lot of issues there.
It's going to be 20 minutes to the Cowboys now. No. When I make the reference to Jerry Jones, I'm not saying that they only have one issue. I'm saying his ideology of it's harder than it looks for trade negotiations, and guys are getting traded for 5th, 6th round picks. What? This is what happens when this guy has control behind the scenes. Anyway, back to it. DeAndre Hopkins gets traded to the Kansas City Chiefs. Rasheed Rice, Juju Smith-Schuster injury. Everyone and their mother.
We all knew it was coming when he was released by the Cardinals. Everyone said, "Great, he's going to the Chiefs. It makes the most sense. This is who will pay him. They'll pay him $8 to $10 million a year at most. He's still going to make money from the Cardinals, and he's going to be a superstar there." And then instead, when he got cut, DeAndre Hopkins came out and said it's all going to be about a combination of the best quarterback, a place to win, and then he lied. And he went right to the Tennessee Titans with the most money, which I will never fault a guy for taking the most money available. It seems like that was really the only team that said, "We're going to offer you the most money."
He took the scenic route.
And look,
to get to Kansas.
To be completely fair, they were at a time where it seemed like it was at the end of their playoff window. They still had Derrick Henry. They still had Ryan Tannehill. They were a perennial playoff team, and it seemed like the perfect addition at the time, and it fell apart way quicker than anyone expected.
Justin, DeAndre Hopkins' route to Kansas City was like if you flew from Houston to Albuquerque with a layover in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. It made no damn sense for him to do that.
I mean, boys, to get to Missouri, you can drive through Tennessee. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but from Arizona.
Yeah.
Oh, look, so it's just a matter of like the rich get richer, don't they? And again, just to Justin's point, Tennessee's paying Hopkins the rest of his contract. The $2.5 million or whatever it is. They're paying him. Kansas City's getting him for nothing. It's a 6th that turns into a 5th if they make the Super Bowl and he plays 60% of the snaps the rest of the way, which they're gonna do, and he's gonna do. So it's like it's peanuts on the dollar, basically, to give Kansas City a guy. Now, yes, no Rasheed Rice, no Juju Smith-Schuster, still have Xavier Worthy. So Hopkins and Worthy are your 1 and your 2 now. Good freaking luck to anybody else. And well, receiver-wise, yeah, but Kelsey's there too. Good freaking luck. And Noah Gray too. Good freaking luck to anybody. And once they get Pacheco back, oh, God, it's going to be a nightmare. And it already is, but it's going to be even worse of a nightmare.
And what's been a struggle season for Mahomes so far, and even with, like we mentioned Travis Kelce, it's not been a good season for him so far, if we're being honest, to the standards that he's shown us before. You know, it's clear that if the Chiefs complete the three-peat, Travis Kelce is going to retire. He's going to do his podcast with his brother, and then he's going to go with Taylor Swift on her next 2-3 world tours that she's going to do.
Yeah.
So he's just getting ready for that.
He's going to learn to play sousaphone or something like that, you know.
Indeed. Does a harmonica rendition of all of Taylor Swift's songs on the tour. Anyways, it's one of those things where, like we said, this is something that it could have and should have happened. And like Justin said, it's the perfect combination. He got the money, and he's going to be able to play and win a Super Bowl this year. And add that to his resume, which a Super Bowl on a resume like DeAndre Hopkins, already a pretty good player. That's a Hall of Fame solidifying case right there, all things considered for him. And you know, he is the, like, again, yes, Kelsey's there, but he's just strictly speaking, wide receivers only the definitive de facto number one guy there. Top banana, to say the very least, because, well, I mean, even if they were healthy, he probably would be, but everyone is injured. So He's going to get plenty of production here in Kansas City, and he's going to get, it's probably going to take a game or two to figure him fully into the fold. But this is Andy Reid, this coaching staff. Granted, Matt Nagy is the offensive coordinator, but it's Andy Reid, it's Patrick Mahomes. This is a 5-time Pro Bowler and 5-time All-Pro player they're bringing into the mix. Supremely talented star. And you add a guy like this to Kansas City, it's like Rick said, it's the rich get richer, and it strikes fear for you for a year where we thought that maybe Kansas City would take a step back just in terms of they could take the regular season off. They know what they can do now on the road and at home in the postseason. Like, would we really have been surprised? Legitimately, not from a talent perspective. Would we have been surprised if the Chiefs had started this year like 4-2? They're coasting a little bit, but they know they're still the best in their division. They know they have that locked up. They're 6-0. Offense has not been good. Let's just be blatant. The offense has not been good. Mahomes, unless he finishes the season with like 35 passing touchdowns and only throws one more interception, which, to be fair, could happen. He's not going to be the MVP this year. He's not. Right now, he's not. There's no way. There's not a single, like I said before, there's not a single individual player that has a definitive, I should be the MVP this year case. There's not. I don't think there is. And like 6 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, that could get remedied real quick with DeAndre Hopkins. So
here's the cool thing about DeAndre Hopkins, because now there's now that his career has really blossomed and it's 11 years in, he needs, if he has 7 touchdowns and 600 yards for the rest of the year, which is not impossible considering we're only in week 7, he will be 19th all time in both reception touchdowns and reception yards. So he's got a chance to crack the top 20 and some pretty major categories now that he's on a high-powered offense with an excellent quarterback like Patrick Mahomes. It's going to be interesting to see how he fits in there and what exactly the damage is that he could do.
And let's be real, with the money he's made, he could return to Kansas City after this season on just a very cheap 1-year manageable deal and rack up the numbers even more. This is just stat padding for himself at this point for the rest of his career if he chooses to remain in Kansas City, right? And would we blame him? Seriously, this is very interesting. So the rich get richer in Kansas City. The middle class got a nice bonus check for the Buffalo Bills and Amari Cooper. The Jets might be spending their money at a bar on Friday night, like characters in various cartoons, adult cartoons have.
The Jets are third-class steerage on the Titanic, damn it.
And this next part will depend. Boys, will someone trade for Cooper Kupp? The Rams have been in contact with teams about Cooper Kupp. Teams are very interested in a guy like that. The production with Cooper Kupp has obviously gone down since the year the Rams won the Super Bowl. This is Cooper Kupp is it's got to be studied. With getting the receiving triple crown back in 2021 with 145 catches, 1,947 yards, 16 touchdowns. Since then, he's only caught 12 total touchdowns.
He's missed a lot of time, though.
That's true.
Yeah.
To be fair, he has missed a lot of time, but has only caught 12 total touchdowns since then. Hasn't played anywhere near a full season since then. It's been tough going, to say the very least, right? And Cooper Kupp is such an interesting resume to look at because his resume reads off with Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl MVP, 1-time Offensive Player of the Year, 1-time First-Team All-Pro, only 1 Pro Bowl in his career, and then receptions, yards, and touchdowns leader, like I mentioned. Basically, every single technical resume achievement for himself all came in 2021. He's a good player. It's not just that 1 year and he's disappeared off the face of the earth like a Josh Gordon, for example. This is a really good player that can be acquired here. So, boys, what do we think? This Rams team that we talked about, Aaron Donald, who retired this past offseason, and the force that he was, that's a guaranteed bona fide future Hall of Famer. Matthew Stafford, we know this is the back nine, probably almost at the 18 full at this point, if we're being honest, of his career. Sean McVay, it's been questioned in the past, if he ever wanted to leave coaching and get a nice, cozy football gig, which, once again, Sean, hey, from your old Albanian buddy here, I think you should reconsider that.
I think you should come to the show. I figured, okay.
Well, yeah, I would love the dude. Short list, I think Sean McVay would be awesome as a podcast guest. I think he's funny. I think he's legitimately got awesome personality. So I would love Sean McVay. Snowball's
brilliant.
Snowball's chance in a furnace that'll happen, but it's a dream.
Once we get friend of the show, Mike Tomlin, we can get anybody.
Hey, soon enough. Rick is still working in the back channels, but this Rams team, they sold their soul for the Super Bowl, and another key piece of that team could be coming off here very soon. Let's give Justin a break. He's carried the show for the last half hour. Rick, I'll throw it to you first. Thoughts of Cooper Kupp rumors, and do you have maybe one or two definitive teams that you think would be like the most aggressive bidders for him?
This week is going to be the most telling. Tomorrow night's game is going to be the most telling, the result of it. If the Rams can pick up a win here over the Vikings and go to 3-4, because this division has become a lot more wide open, I think Kupp stays because there's still that outside shot that they can make a run with this team. Yes, he hasn't had the production that he has, but this is a Rams team that's finding itself right now on the precipice of doing something pretty amazing here. Because again, you've got this game against the Vikings, then you've got the Seahawks in a couple weeks, and then after the deadline, Dolphins and Patriots. I mean, they've still got a good chance here to make some noise. So if they win, I say he doesn't go. But if they lose and they're 2-5, the wheels could start to churn because they're off next week, which is like a big bye week for trade deadline. So they can make some moves here. What I've seen is that the asking price for him is pretty high. LA, I think, in talks with Pittsburgh, said that the price for Cooper Kupp is going to be a second-round pick. But they are inclined to eat some of the $29 million that he's owed this year. I think he's still at $29 million next year as well in order to make a trade happen. So the Steelers, they lost out on Brandon Ayuk, which, I mean, they dodged that bullet, I would say, now because he's out for the year. And they lost out on Davante Adams, which, is what it is. So they could be big players for Kupp. I think Tampa's a big player now because, again, they need a marquee receiver now that they don't have Evans and Godwin. And depending on how things shake out, I think you could see Washington be a sneaky player here too. Because the Commanders have been rumored for T. Higgins a bunch. But, if it's Kupp or Higgins, I think you can't go wrong with either one of them. I think it's a question mark of whether or not they want to pay an exorbitant amount of money for a wide receiver like that. But I think those are your three key options right there if you're the Rams looking for a dance partner here. Pittsburgh, Tampa, or Washington. But again, if they win tomorrow night, which the spread's only 3. If they win tomorrow night, they may be in business to hold on to him and try and, navigate through this year. And especially, like I said, with this division now that San Francisco is very hurt and very banged up, you can see them hold on and kind of pull a Detroit Tigers, where they held on to their best piece and it got them all the way to Game 5 of the ALDS. So,
Maybe. I'll say, and I don't know, I really don't know what the full story behind like this team's interest in the other receivers that have gone off the board were, or how aggressive they were. Baltimore.
Wow.
Imagine Baltimore. Yeah, you got Lamar, you have Derrick Henry. Why not just nice little rental with a Cooper Kupp?
Well, I was gonna say they're also, because I know Flowers is questionable this week too, so they're kind of also a little depleted.
Like why not add a guy like that who's performed in the postseason?
Yeah, it's not a bad choice.
Like that's more than just consideration right there. That's I think a real threat. It would be interesting to see. I don't know if they'll do it, but it would be very interesting to see if Baltimore could add a piece like that. Like, could that be the kind of guy that could help you over? Because I mentioned that 2021 campaign earlier in the regular season, the postseason, real quick, boys. In 4 games for the Rams on the Super Bowl winning run, 33 receptions, which is the record, 478 receiving yards, 6 touchdowns. It's pretty good, man.
Yeah,
it's pretty good. So,
yep.
There's that. Justin, you get the last word on the Cooper Kupp situation before we move on.
I mean, there's just so many teams that can use a possession receiver like Cooper Kupp. I'm looking through it now, and there's just some teams that I don't necessarily know about the cap space and what would fit and whatnot. But, I mean, you look at a team like Denver, who is probably going to be at some point 5-5 because they're 4-3 right now.
Yeah.
But then they play the Ravens and the Chiefs, which they're probably not going to win. They should beat the Panthers this weekend, especially with Bryce Young playing, and that defense is strong. But then they have a pretty easy, notably easy back half of their schedule. The Falcons have been beatable. Not bad, but they've been beatable. They play then the Raiders, the Browns, the Colts. The Chargers have been beatable. They just lost to them, but I think that they have the defense and the tools to beat them. What about it? What about Cooper Kupp staying in LA and going to the Chargers? They could use a possession receiver. Another team that's been a little disappointing that has missed, a veteran, quick, possession receiver. What about the Bengals? And imagine stealing that trade away from the Steelers. That would be a win-win.
And how ironic it would be to get the guy that beat you those years ago.
Well, if you really want to talk about it, Odell was the best receiver in that game. But You're right. This is an ideal move for a team like that who could really use a little bit of help outside of Jamar Chase. Even T. Higgins has been okay, but a little disappointing with all his injuries and things like that. So it also makes Higgins a little more expendable.
Yeah.
Just saying, if they can't come up with that extension. So, yeah, it's an interesting thing. You're right. The Rams could end up winning a couple games and deciding to keep him. I'm always a fan of a guy like that finishing out his career with his team. But a lot of interesting scenarios.
Yeah.
To say the very least. And we'll definitely be keeping an eye on that and the other big names that are going to get rumored here in the coming weeks for the NFL trade deadline. Oh, what fun it'll be and how it'll impact the games, because the games being impacted impacts the hashtag SAOC pick challenge. We're on a weekly basis. Rick, Justin, and I go through the NFL landscape of games for a week, and we pick games on a 4-1 points basis, 4 most confident, 1 least confident. We go in a serpentine draft order based on the point standings for us so far this season. We can pick a tie if we so choose, and must be used with our 4-pointer, which gets upgraded to a 5-pointer if we do so choose to make it a tie. And we must pick at least 1 upset game. Minimum it can be that is allowable is 2. If we do not pick an upset within our first 3 picks and only make it our 1 penalty by Blood Eagle or whatever the Vikings used to do way back when. Anyways. Yes. Just Google that if you want something explicit to finish the night, along with Justin's 4 coin drops for the swear jar here. Anyways, I think I said everything I had to say, honestly. So, Podfather, update us on the standings, and let's get the show on the road.
Our lines this evening, and as always, are being provided to us by our friends at
ESPN Bet.
Thank you. This is the first time we've done this in a while, where we've had like all of us together on the show. Have actually had like the picks basically by our own. So to recap last week, it was a pretty good week for all of us, I would say. Better for some than others. Jerk had a perfect week once again. I don't know what albino kangaroo oracle he's praying to, but he hit on Detroit, Arizona with a walk-off field goal, Cincy, and Jacksonville, which he started the week at 40 points and is now at 51 because 10 plus the 1 bonus point. Justin, you didn't have a bad week either. You were 1 off of a perfect week as well. It was just Atlanta that let you down at the end, but you hit on Buffalo, KC, and Baltimore, which gets you from 36 to 45. So you're still hanging in there. You're doing pretty okay here. Look, I was 2-2 last week. It's fine. I hit on Washington because, of course, I did. And the Rams, so I went from 30 to 35. And the mascot went with Denver and Pittsburgh, and he got those 2, missed on Miami, so 29. So I'm still 6 clear. I got a long ways to go. The gap is widened to from second to third. It feels like it's 2023.
No, 2022. 2023 was last.
All over again, yeah. Interesting week of games with a lot of, this is actually, since we're doing a Wednesday night show, all 16 games are available. And yes, this is an odd week where all 32 teams are actually playing this week. I think they got the idea of the frenzy from what hockey did last night and playing all 32 games at once, basically.
Well, 32 teams, not 32 games.
Well, 32 games, why not? So I will start off with my choice here. And
real quick, just for clarification for the people. So as we've done in the past, are we leaving the Thursday night game only for the mascot?
No, this is a weird one. If you want to take the Thursday night game, be my guest. I'm just the bookkeeper.
I don't know if I will. I'm just asking for both yours.
If Justin wants it, he can have it. I'm not sure if I'm going to take it yet. I don't know, but if you want to go for it, why not? What the hell?
Right.
Dealer's choice. I'm going to go for the second highest spread, not the first highest spread, because I have a weird thing. I think a couple of years ago I picked the highest spread and I lost every game that week, and that was when our then mascot had an 11-point week, and it was just the worst thing ever. I'm going to go with the second highest spread, and I'm going to take, actually, all the time, I'm going to take the Broncos at 4 points over the Panthers. Yeah, Carolina's starting Bryce Young. This is an easy layup for me. Even though Denver's offense hasn't looked great under Bo Nix, they've looked okay and passable. And this Denver defense should have a field day. So give me the Broncos at 4 points over the Panthers for my first selection this evening. Justin, to you.
That's not the highest spread.
So it's the second highest spread.
Oh, it's tied for the second highest spread.
Yes.
I see. I'm going to take the highest spread.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the Lions at home against the depleted Tennessee Titans.
Yeah. Like I said, something about those really, like, that's an 11-pointer. Something about that game kind of worries me a little bit. Like, the Lions just had that emotional win over the Vikings, and I don't know if they're due for a letdown, but the Titans just have nobody. Although I have Tony Pollard in fantasy, so I'm hoping for good things, but we'll see. Jurg, you're in first place. You get 4 and 3, so go ahead. Have fun.
Remember when the Raiders made fun of Patrick Mahomes in the offseason with the whole Kermit the Frog thing?
Yay!
Yeah, it's time for the first of those games. Give me Kansas City with a 4-pointer. Yes, I know they're depleted. Yes, I know this would, in theory, be the kind of game where the Raiders would win. This might be Patrick Mahomes' best game of the season yet, potentially. So give me the Chiefs with that. And for my 3-pointer here, actually, I could go a number of ways. There are some very tantalizing upsets to make here at the 3, but I'm relatively confident that I will have at least one of mine available to me when it comes time to circle back for my 2-pointer. So, that being said, give me. This one is an interesting one. That team's dealing with injuries. That team lost in heartbreaking fashion. I'll be a little bold. Fortune favors the bold, they say, boys. Give me the Chargers with my 3-pointer, actually. Going to go with some AFC West magic here. Chargers, tough loss against the Cardinals that they feel they should have had. Going up against the Saints team that still doesn't have their starter. Lost Shaheed, lost Paulson Debo. This is a time where you could get back up in the standings if you're the Chargers. So Chargers with my 3. Chiefs and Chargers. CC. My 4 and my 3.
Indeed. Justin?
So, I guess I'll stick with the Bills.
Okay. That is. See, I'm kind of surprised, and I can't take it because I'm honor bound to my preseason picks. I'm kind of surprised that neither of you stepped with the Ravens for a high point pick because they're playing Cleveland.
It's a potential weird game. Jameis Winston.
AFC North is not one to mess with.
AFC North matchups I save for my 2 or 1.
I know, but I figured that that also factored into why Jurg would also not stay away from Kansas City because AFC West, the Raiders did beat them last time out. So I don't know if Pierce conjures up a good defense, that could be interesting here. I am going to take the Steelers and Mr. Unlimited at 3 points. Look,
I forgot that dang nickname. Oh, I hate you.
Look. Yes, it's a Monday night game, but let's call it what it is here. The Giants' offense is a trash heap. I mean, yeah, it's away, so maybe they'll score more than 10 points. But even so, do you trust this team to even do anything? I don't think so. Give me the Steelers there at 3. And now I have an interesting dilemma because we have to go upset here, which I'm honor bound to do. I have a very interesting dilemma here with my upset picks here. There were 2 that I don't like, and there's one that I'm a little wary of, only because I don't know per se. See, I'm going back and forth on this. I really am. I'm not picking that AFC North game. So I'm not going to pick the Browns over the Ravens, even though I have them in my regular pool. So my question then becomes, do I take the divisional matchup or the non-divisional matchup here? And it's tricky because it's tricky. All right, here's what I'm going to do. Are the Colts are starting Anthony Richardson, right? That we haven't seen anything that says that Flacco's going to start for them, or that Richardson's benched.
I think so.
Okay, so I'm going to go with my only other upset choice here, and I'm giving away 2 points here, but that's fine. I don't mind. Give me the Jaguars over the Packers at 2 points. Jacksonville seemed to right the ship last week against New England, and Green Bay, they pulled off a win over Houston, but it wasn't convincing. This game is in Jacksonville. Could be a little tricky. I'm talking myself into it. Give me the Jags at 2. Not confident, but we'll see.
Still didn't learn, Drake, huh?
I didn't pick the Jets.
That's true. Maybe you learned a little bit.
Well, again, when I'm hamstrung by my own honor-bound commitments, I have to kind of, figure things out. So, and Anthony Richardson against the Texans defense scares me. So,
Fair enough.
I believe we are all supposed to go 2-point upset here. So,
Yes.
I definitely am. And I am going to take the Philadelphia Eagles in Cincinnati. They're only a 2.5-point underdog. They are the winning team that's facing a losing team. And I understand that the Bengals are good. They're coming back. But if they can get anything going in that passing game, it's going to be very hard to stop that Eagles team.
Why are they the underdogs in this game?
I don't know.
Very weird. Okay.
Since you're on a bit of a run, and the Eagles haven't necessarily looked all that
Eagles have
impressive.
been a little disappointing.
Yeah. Like, you blew out the Giants. Cool.
Congratulations.
Do you want a cookie? Like, all right. This is interesting. Good amount of games here. See, I wish the line was the other way in that Bears-Commanders game, because Chicago would be an amazing upset pick, but obviously they're favored.
Yep.
You know what? Again, fortune favors the bold. And if this is a bad week for me, this is a bad week for me. I think, not including season opening weeks, I think it's going to be the first time that a Thursday night game is on the docket. I'm going to take it. I'll be bold. I'll pick the Rams to beat the Vikings this week, to beat them tomorrow night.
Interesting.
So we'll know early on if I lose my chance at a perfect week here.
Yeah.
To say the very least. And then for my 1-point pick, give me the Ravens.
Okay.
Again, like discrepancy, margin, and all that. 1-point pick. It's kind of like if you're going to take a risk on an AFC North matchup like that, you use the 1-pointer.
Okay.
See, now, I was all over this game last week. But there's a lot of injuries. A lot of injuries for this team. And to be fair, I'm also currently 0-3 picking them this year.
Oh no. Uh-oh.
So I'm not
you want to talk about not
sure.
learning your lesson or not?
I'm not sure if that's. Am I 0-4 picking them? Do I have all of their losses? No, I picked the Chiefs to beat them.
He's going Patriots 1-point upset. I could feel it.
Cross my mind. I'm gonna go with the Bucks.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting choice there.
I'll go with Tampa Bay. I think that defense is still going to keep that game close, and Baker can find.
Kate Otten for 250 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, why not, right?
He'll find someone.
Yeah. He'll find. That's a good option. He'll find somebody. Okay. So that puts me at 1. I have 2 games in mind at 1. And so here's my dilemma. Which quarterback that I've spoken about ad nauseum in negative connotations do I want to take here? That's the real question that I have.
You sound like me last year for like a Vikings and Titans game.
I'm going to take Chicago over Washington as my one-pointer. And I was thinking about taking Miami over Arizona because Tua's back, but I think that Cardinals defense is going to be pretty good, and I don't think the Miami offense is back just yet, so I'll roll with that one. And now for the picks from the mascot, who can't stand any of us and can't stand to be on the same room as any of us, which I think is just phenomenal.
Justin's probably like, with all things going wrong, he's probably happiest that this is like the season with the least amount of mascot time.
Probably.
Bring him on if it gets me a Jets win. I don't care.
Well, the mascot is deciding to go Patriots at 4 over the Jets just to really spite you. And I have a message from him actually. It says, "Add more to the swear jar, Justin. That'd be lovely." So,
Did I curse again? Did I curse again?
No, but he's hoping you do because you've cursed 4 times, which is the career high for any of us.
If the Patriots do
It
win,
is?
yeah,
100%.
If the
No
Patriots-
way.
Yes, 100%. I've only cursed that most twice on a single episode.
I've definitely cursed more than 4
and
times.
I'm 125 episodes in, and I've cursed 0 times. Keeping it family friendly. PBS.
I thought you broke it the other day.
No, he didn't.
Didn't you break it like a couple weeks ago?
No, he kept it clean.
I thought about it. I said I could, but I didn't.
He's if Rick comes in third, no, if Rick loses to the mascot, we need then he has to break it on purpose.
I'll go blue.
That's his motivation.
I'll go
That's
blue
his
for episode. I don't
motivation.
mind. I don't mind. That's fine. So
If the mascot beats you this season, you have to finally break the streak.
Yeah, I'll go blue. I don't mind. It's not going to happen, but I'll go blue. New England at 4, Miami at 3, Dallas over San Francisco at 2 in an upset, and Houston over Indy at 1. So to recap, that's the picks for the mascot. Jared, you're going Kansas City, Chargers, Rams, and Baltimore. Justin's Detroit, Buffalo, Philly, Tampa, and I'm Denver, Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, Chicago. So if that's what happens, so be it.
So be it indeed. And speaking of which, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for the main attraction. Can't say main event because that's copyrighted.
Yes.
So
You just said it.
I said
Main event
attraction.
player.
No, but then afterwards, when you're saying you can't say it, you said the words you can't say.
That's semantics. You're not the legal. You're not the legal counsel
This
for a reason.
banter and dialogue kind of undoes that. So it's fine.
Anyways, Ranton Rick's Rostrum Podium. Rick,
Oh,
we've missed it.
boy.
Well, I missed it.
Oh,
Take
boy.
us home.
Oh boy.
Lead us into the night, good sir.
Let's keep it sports themed. Let's keep it sports themed here. Number 3, I'm going to highlight something. It's not really a rant per se, but it's more like an interesting thing, but I don't really understand, but I kind of do understand it in a way. I don't know if you are aware of this. So when teams have like their uniforms, they do a home, away, and alternate. Three uniform set. The WNBA does things a little differently. Their uniforms aren't named home, away, and alternate. They're named Heroine, Explorer, and Rebel. You see, because Heroine, the home court, obviously. Explorer, you're traveling to the away site, so you're exploring the away area. And Rebel, because it's an alternate jersey and it's rebelling against the system, I suppose. I understand, and it's kind of kitschy, and I kind of get what you're doing, but like, why you gotta hit that nail on the head so hard? We understand that you're a league of difference, you know? I mean, look, I'll say it like this. Instead of doing this and worrying about this, get your WNBA Player Association in order, because if they're locked out, no one's really going to care, because the ratings for women's basketball, I'm sorry, they could be great, but the rest of the country doesn't really, care, unfortunately, which is sad, because there's some good players and good teams, but it's rough. Number 2, let's go to the NHL. So jerseys and teams have their captains, obviously, and every NHL team that has a captain. But what does the A stand for the captaincy? Because I've heard some people call it assistant captain. I've heard some people call it alternate captain. And I think there's one team in the NHL that's now calling it associate captain. Can we pick one and stick with it, please? That would be lovely if we could pick one and stick with it, because why do we have to just be so ridiculous and pick and go to the thesaurus and find different words for different things. Like, that mean the same thing. Like, just pick one and make it the streamlined thing. It's very simple, honestly.
Rick, we've been fans of the NHL, the two of us, for so long. We know dang well if this league has the opportunity to simplify or streamline something, never does it.
Well, that's true. The only thing that can streamline is Gary Bettman's death when it finally happens. Anywho, let's go to our number one on the Rant Podium for this week. I'm going to save the talk about the social media maven for next week because Lord knows you can't get enough of the people that are on there. This is kind of a overarching thing. If you are going to a game, I understand it's your right and your prerogative to go to the game and be loud and be boisterous and be cheering and do whatever the case is, but be cognizant of where you are. If you happen to be in front of a television camera, don't jump up and go crazy because the camera is streaming to people's homes and we can't see the damn big play that happened because you're going, woo! And your arms are all over the freaking place. There's a clip from the 90s, speaking of hockey, the Brendan Shanahan double overtime goal in Detroit. If you know it, you'll know that every time the camera pans to a certain section, there's these two idiots that jump up and down whenever they're on camera. Like, it's stupid. Like, I hope that they got fired like the guy who kicked the Commanders fans out of the Ravens game. I hope they got fired like that guy too. But even so, worse, on radio, if I'm listening to a game, the radio microphone's somewhere, and it just happens to be where the loudest, most annoying fans are. It's like, just be cognizant of where you are because, people who don't go to that game, who don't spend that money, who aren't, living the high life, are trying to enjoy listening to or watching the game. And we don't need to see your sweaty hands and hairy arms and hear your grating voice, like you're some political candidates cackling after laughter. Like, we don't need to hear that or see that. Like, just be cognizant of where you are and know that if you're in my way, like Liam Neeson, I will find you. Because obviously you're on camera, so I will find you. Facial recognition is a beautiful thing. I will find you. And I will send somebody, who will take you down. The return of Billy. Because we can't get enough mascots, can we, Justin? Ha 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 ha!
We can't.
That was beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes. This really was a Chaos After Dark edition, ladies and gentlemen, of the edition of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. First time we eclipsed 2 hours, I think, in a good while. So
this is the latest that I've stayed up in like 4 weeks, by the way. This is ridiculous.
There you go. So this was a fun one, guys. Plenty that we talked about. Injury report lets you know the landscape of the league and what's going on right now, and really just that this game it's a battle of attrition. And we'll see who's the healthiest at the midway point of the season and come towards the season then. And, some acquisition stuff. And, hey, there's more of that to talk about. Trade deadlines coming soon. And what's also coming soon, not confirmed if we're going to do it before or after the trade deadline. Maybe it makes a bit more sense to do it after the trade deadline. Of course, my compatriots of Chaos and I will convene about it. But the head coach hot seat meter is going to come here very shortly. And that's always a fun one that we get to do on a yearly basis. I think Justin has missed both. Did Justin miss both the first two renditions of this?
Yes.
It's funny because I'm always the one that's putting the coach on the hot seat.
Which is amazing, and yet you're the one that always misses the episode. So we'll see if that contractual clause, if there's a negotiation for Justin out of that one, and we'll see if that he could get out of that and finally join us on an edition of that this time. But plenty of fun stuff for us in the coming weeks and more as we continue this trek, soon to be halfway completed with the 2024 NFL season. And we hope you join us for the rest of this ride into the postseason and beyond. Thank you so much for joining us for another fun edition of, fun football and chaos. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you all next time.